for them. Plenty of teams fighting in the Storm right now. Of course, Storm Surge initial warning pops up, so some of the teams that are below, they're looking to get a lot of that damage. And we expect this, of course, earlier on in the competition. A lot more passive, a lot more Storm plays, or the Surge popping a little bit maybe earlier than expected, but not much time to really settle down either in these lobbies, really. It's only a 5-game format, and every game could look different, Taco, so it's really game by game you have to take it.
Yeah, if there was some form of a consistency metric, I do think that we would maybe see things be a little bit more lulled in the action, but with so many teams' hopes just hinging upon whether or not they can transition some of these early fights into a solid position for winning that victory royale at the end of it all, that's where things just get a little bit more dicey. And Surefour, Ballucci, another one of those duos where you wouldn't have originally expected it. It's been Surefour and Repairs for quite some time, but now Ballucci as the new duo, and Surefour trying to gauge whether or not this is actually going to bow them the level of success that they need. It's a nice setup, but the patience is a little bit risky here, given that they are only sitting at 153 above. They're definitely going to need more surge as the game develops, but a refresh onto Sinet and we could be everything for this duo as the game continues to build.
Really important there for them. Excited to see that duo develop, of course. Surefour, Search, and Repairs. Such a great duo, of course, qualifying to the Major 1 finals. Doing very well at that as well, but Search, did he just kind of sort of just gave up playing with Repairs? Kind of got a bit sick of playing with Repairs. Just wasn't vibing like they used to, and sometimes that can happen after a bad tournament. Of course, bad qualifiers into the heats themselves. So it's like, maybe this is a welcome change here for Surge, but we'll see how that develops. Of course, Ballucci, a top-tier player, lots of experience, so maybe just the perfect person to bring him along the journey here. The Frisian Vannyak as well. I think a team that we expect so much of Vannyak that he's probably not delivered on since the barnstorming year he had last year in trios. Just hasn't hit the ground running here in 2026, Taco.
He's hoping that maybe this could be that catalyst for himself and Nafrizi. Granted, both of them probably wishing that they could have avoided this last chance circumstance, but once you're in the thick of it, it would just set a nice message of confidence, I think, to not only themselves but everyone else, that, you know, they've still got what it takes and they're able to continue building that into something more. Savage and Truly, though, after their off-spawn success, now in a pretty well-based position, 585 above, so definitely in full control of their surge metrics, and that is something that was 1000% proving to be a massive problem for this duo throughout the course of their heats. Question is, though, Mini, whether or not they're actually going to be able to try and establish some form of height control.
This is a huge game for them because, yes, they want off spawn, they need to make the most of it, but also they want off spawn in a way where they're not getting third-partied. And the analysts broke it down. They said how that drop spot can be third-partiable, if you like. So the fact that they won it and didn't get third party is absolutely vital, as Fakey here tries to make his way inside of the zone. 213 below. He's taking damage as well, which is just making that number go even lower. And unfortunately for Fakey, he's just getting looked at by so many of the other players. He's going to have a moment to breathe here, a moment to heal. But this is just dangerous because all the people around him will know that he's getting ticked for that Storm Surge damage. Kovacs, Tilio will be looking and hearing those cues, you have to imagine, and maybe making that play if they deem it's worth it. But they're looking pretty stacked right now. Maybe it's not the play they want to go for, and a big shot there taken from Kovacs. Not ideal, and again from Tilio and Kovacs as well. Another shot coming up against him. So they're taking a lot of damage right now, which of course means they have to do a little bit more as they continue.
Surprisingly enough, though, hasn't impacted their surge too negatively just yet. Still sitting in a decent spot, but Kovacs having to preoccupy himself with just looking to restore some of those shields. And Fakey, he might actually just be looking like a primo loot llama for material counts. If anybody stumbles over that body, it's going to be Wi-Fi and Boris first to it. Hedra and Lixium, or another duo in that same area, looking to apply some pressure here. But that was a big map refresh, as you can tell, for Boris and Wi-Fi, to continue now to gauge whether or not they want to try follow the crowd with this next rotate. When you are caught in these little areas of congestion and you are recognizing the fact that there is a team already established a little bit further ahead towards that next front side of zone, it is going to be a bit of a difficult endeavor to get closer to it. For Ballucci, might find themselves clashing here with Wheat and Dennis if they're not careful, but Lucy, first and foremost, he's just trying to take over the aggressive front. They need damage. Ferdy might be able to provide it, but instead immediately collapsed on by another player in the same sort of dire consequence of events. And now everyone clearly feeling the pressure that the Surge is starting to apply.
Yeah, it's the teams that have fought that are looking pretty strong right now in terms of the Surge damage. The teams that have effectively and efficiently fought, like Reason and Khan, although we did lose Khan a little bit earlier on, they moved their way back, they got their way back over, and of course won that second fight. So 3 eliminations for them keeps them well above, but it's the teams that have been a little bit too passive at the beginning of the game that are just slowly toppling right now as they get involved in a lot of these fights and end up forcing themselves into fights. You see Reason and Khan making their way underneath the builds right here, and for Savage and Truly, there's a situation we have seen them in the heats as well. They're getting looked at by a lot of different players in the lobby. And for Truly, it's your time to shine, my friend. This is where you need to stay together as a duo, ensure that we can see how well they can play these end games together, because that's been their problem. It's been Savage clutching. You can only do it with one player.
And in this type of lobby format, that's just not going to be an option as a solo. Your expectations of delivering on a Victory Royale just become ever so slim. It's now Catchfee, potentially one of those players that's in a bit of desperate needs for some Surge damage. Khan, Reason trying to see whether or not they can capitalize on the circumstance, but whenever you do have players that are just getting a bit over aggressive, trying to immediately crash into the box that you're in to find that additional bit of damage, you can play spoiler, because you don't even necessarily have to get an elimination. Sometimes it's just about avoiding taking damage, avoiding having to take that pause to heal. As now Seti, Combeck, this is a little bit more playing towards their strengths. Combeck has that mythic pistol in hand, so one thing that they are fully aware of needing to have control over is height, but maintaining height in this type of lobby, especially when we're pulling over towards Battlewoods, the trees, can be difficult. And Reason, Khan, that little spoiler circumstance seems to have actually taken place here. If Reason's able to get the revive off yet again, these two are going to have to really hit the ground running here. Zone has caught up. Playing from backside just means that they are going to have to break through so many pre-existing builds, and not only that, but players just waiting to ambush.
And it's a team on high, Seti and Combeck, that had that really nice zone call, took advantage of it as well, and now they can rain down fire from up above. They're connecting to these trees here as well, which can keep them afloat. Chicho now down to a solo as well, using that overdrive effect to gain a little bit of extra movement speed, but for now it's going to be nice and chill, popping the Chug Jug inside of the box, playing a little bit of that Storm to try and stay back as much as possible. It's not over till it's over here for Chicho, but it's just been made much more difficult now the fact that he's a solo. Seti goes towards the front side of zone, as well as Combeck playing the backside, looking to try and cover as he does. Vanier on low ground as well, trying to find a couple of frags in this position next to Nefrizi, who's looking on the walls and making sure that this team next to them aren't going to go for a pre-fire. But look at this, Reason from a revive up to height, all the way up, takes down Seti. Reason now able to try and find that body if he can, needs those materials to maintain it, but Combeck now back inside of the Storm. Their game has quite literally crumbled.
It is an absolutely devastating blow right now for Combeck and Seti, but it's part of the risk involved in Combeck. Way after the fact, going to make sure to get a little taste of revenge there. Reason being taken out now means that height has just become a mess of itself, and other teams are immediately looking to capitalize. Gordete, Clays, Durden, Skos, all of them immediately looking to try and challenge for the high ground, but half of them barely even had the material count to stay up top. Skos going to be some of the first to drop. Durden and Gordete are finally in some semblance of control here, but Truly Savage, take a look at what they've been getting up to from that secondary height position, fully aware of some of the chaos that just ensued up above, and now they want to see whether or not they can clear out enough space to really try and have a proper challenge for it. But Combeck finally going to be shut down here as he tries to make his way towards frontside. Faded still as a solo, no Dexy, just means that he could potentially end another team's hopes for bringing home that Victory Royale. But for Truly and Savage, they need a refresh, and they need it now. They might not have the luxury to pick and choose, but Vanya and Nefrizi going to pose too much of a threat here. Mainly trying to see if they can tackle these walls now. As I peek, not in their favor. Savage actually choosing to elevate despite the HP disadvantage. He knows their best odds at finding a refresh, of finding an elimination, is going to come from that overhead view.
Yeah, they're looking to try and jump in on some wood right here as Savage, he knows the experience that he has. Of course, this is his best opportunity inside of the box with Tree now dropping down all the layers. It's Nefrizi, it's Vanya. That's not the box you want to get into unless your name's Mr. Savage. Huge shot, but gets shot from behind. There's another team in this low ground section as well. The issue for all of these teams down below is there's now a hill to contend with as well, but Truly takes down Nefrizi. Vanya now down to a solo. Truly finally comes into his own, but unfortunately gets sent back to the lobby as Vanya now needs a solo clutch like he's done so many times before. Godette and Z's, no way. They have gone down to full damage as well, and now it's all up to Vanya on low ground to try and make something in this game.
It's one thing to have height, it's another thing to make sure that you're not getting chopped in the process, and Vanya just barely managing to get over that initial starting point of the cliff face. But Karmi and Toos from way up above, they're going to be the ultimate benefactors. Great blockage of that overdrive attempt from Vanya to try and disorient them, but Vanya is sliding all the way down the hill, straight into the clutches of players that are just left over at the bottom of this mountain phase. We will have no other choice except to continue trying to elevate. Toos, Karmi a little bit preoccupied now with this attempt, and it's a shutdown, and that is going to leave us in a sea of solo showdowns, as now we trying to see if he can clutch this one out. Toos looking to take it over, but at the same time, it's going to be Wheat and Sinead who are some of the first to claim that spot in the Major 2 Grand Finals. A great effort at the end there. It just became so haphazard, Mini, but ultimately, Wheat and Sinead, they hold strong.
Yeah, they did. That was unbelievable. I thought it was Tusukami. I thought it was theirs for the taking right there. That first game was electric. Let's see what the Deaths make of it.
I mean, it is a harsh format for all of our jurors, but it is so entertaining to watch. Congratulations to Wheat and Sinead for taking their spot in next weekend's Grand Finals. Levin, were you satisfied?
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of Sinead and Wheat. I think when you look at Sinead, obviously in the past, we've seen him in these types of formats, you know, back in the day playing with, you know, whoever it was, he would be playing with one of the Russian guys usually. Wheat as well was a player who, you know, back in Chapter 5 when he really started to, you know, perform at a higher level, I always thought he had so much potential. We didn't really see much from there, you know, after Chapter 5. And good to see him here now, making his way into Grands with a nice little win as well.
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit bad for Toos and Karmi. I thought they had it in the bag. Yeah. I mean, a good zone for them as well, pulling up the hill. All the other players had a very difficult rotate, but we just made it happen. Him and Sinead now qualifying themselves through that match. And the worst part about this for Toos and Karmi is it doesn't matter how many points you got from second place and all those eliminations, because the only thing that matters is that win. And if you don't get it, you are not qualifying. 4 more opportunities are what's left.
And you said that for Toos and Karmi, the zone was putting in their favor. If it doesn't go in their favor next time, they're going to have to work even harder, just like Wheat and Sinead needed to, Levin.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you get put in a situation where you have to clutch up and your teammate goes down, I mean, the composure from Wheat, right? Acknowledging the fact that you had the heals to play with. A lot of people are going to be scrambling in the storm to try and get up the hill. Let me just take the time, pick people off, and make my way back into the storm and just gets the job done. I mean, a very impressive win there.
Yeah, it's what you'd love to see. And thinking about the drops, so now that they're qualified, they were contested. It was right east of where Skyjump and Momsy kind of just got surprise con in those final moments. So maybe one of the big bubble of 10 different duos that are all contesting each other in that area might switch up a little bit, but either way, it's still going to be complicated.
We'll be interested to see if many of those jurors have the same idea and try to find a space for themselves and find themselves yet again contested. But we'll have to wait a few minutes to find out. There are 4 games left in tonight's last chance qualifier, which means there's only 4 spots in the grand finals, and it's going to be so exciting to see who is going to fight the hardest to get them. So let's talk about who showed promise in game number 1, because it was so great to see Savage and Truly taking down Tayson and Merstash, not because they're Tayson and Merstash, more because these guys are 2 players we really want to see in the lobby this weekend, Takata.
Yeah, I mean, this was an exciting way to kick things off, but I'm more excited to see how that kind of early game trend continues, right? We've still got 4 more matches to play out, but let's focus on the end game here. Savage Truly were looking incredibly good. If this was a normal format where consistency mattered, this would have been an incredible game. But that's the issue. Doesn't matter how many seconds, thirds, fourths you get, you have to get that win, and it kind of changes the decision that a lot of these players make, Levin, going into these final moments. You're kind of forced to take those risks to set you up for the win.
Yeah, I think the big thing there was just they couldn't find the refresh they needed in the 11th zone, and the zone wasn't very forgiving either as it started to pull up the hill, so it was like you just had to make a play, and they couldn't find it quick enough. But promising signs, ultimately, both of them being in a position to try and find that refresh in the same place. I think you give them a couple more opportunities, they probably find it.
And Tetsuya and Kombeck already look miles better than when we saw them playing in Heat 3 on Sunday 11. They were very daring to go for that high ground when their surge was only just above the margins, but unfortunately they couldn't go the distance.
Yeah, I mean, well, the problem wasn't Surge, right? The problem was Big Boy Reason who decided to get involved. I mean, yeah, it was unfortunate there, but again, it's one of those things where it does tell us a lot, Takar, about their intentions, right? You saw they wanted to play high. They wanted to just try hold it out. They're clearly thinking, what can we do differently to try win these games?
It didn't matter for Reason and Colin that they were low on mats, low on health. They went for that high ground. And what was interesting to me is after they went for that high ground, like 3 different duos decided it was time to go for height. So you can see Reason Con here made an incredible quick elim onto Seti, but once you see the high ground being fought, you have all these other lurkers down below kind of peeping up at the sky and realizing, okay, now's a good time to take it. We need to get the win. High ground is going to help us get that. And then everybody just started going for it. It was absolute chaos, I believe, in the 10th zone. So I don't think that trend's going to change much continuing in these next matches.
Selfishly, I have to say that Reason and Khan's loss is our gain on the broadcast, because watching their early game, Reason taking on that 2v1, showing off that he's been practicing his own map, then having to get the reboot, finding some action in the mid-game, and just getting through every disadvantage and turning it on its head, Levin. We want to see more of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, Reason and Khan are going to be a fun team to watch in these games, especially if they're going to keep making those types of plays. But that's what I said. I said, look, they're going to be a team that psychos high in most of these games. And game 1, they already show it, so I'm sure there'll be a bit more of that.
Yeah, I'm wondering then, are there any other duos you think that can maintain the consistency tonight, Takata? Oh, and Levin, I know you're key. No, you're key. You're key. I mean,
let's hear it, Levin, because you had the good, predictions.
Kami and Toos, I know, for example.
You were flaming our predictions throughout all the heats on the desk. We brought you here, so let's bring up the desk predictions.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Vanya, right? Because Vanya had a great solo clutch. But unfortunately, it doesn't really mean much to have a great solo clutch if you ain't winning in this lobby, ultimately, right? For a second, I thought we were going to be throwing it back to the good old Chapter 3, Chapter 4 days when me and Shio Wager used to cast over Vanya's solo clutching games all over the shop, right? Of course, again, for people who've been in the Fortnite comp scene for a while, you remember he had one of the best sort of reboot round solo clutches you've ever seen in this type of format. Unfortunately, couldn't replicate that success here in this game. But again, if Vanya is here to play, that's going to be a big factor. And playing with Nefrizzy, I'd actually expect to see them up on height a lot more, because that's what both of those players have been known for historically.
Yeah, and another duo that we saw kind of have a detrimental end was Toos and Karby. I mean, they were looking primed up even until those final moments. Issue is, you can see they ran out of materials, nothing to work with, and one player after another. Wheat was just more set up, more heals, more loot, better position, and ultimately closed it out. But hey, for Toos and Karmy, hopefully that's going to fuel the fire a little bit for these next matches.
Unfortunately, I think we've seen a lot of teams in that type of scenario. You can actually visibly just see almost like the panic and the chaos in that moment where it's like, no, this game is actually slipping out of our fingers. Like, what can we do? Like, they're just looking all over the place, not on the same page. It's tough, but it happens. Hopefully they can bounce back from it.
Well, all of the duos that we've discussed so far have bounced back from terrible performances, or at least under par performances in the heats that's seen them make it to the last chance qualifier, and they've all shown signs of improvement in game one. But will it be enough to get them a victory royale? We'll find out who will be taking our next one, well, now, because we're ready to head to game two of Miniminer and Techo.
With the winner still yet to be determined, Mini, we'll get another chance to see who actually comes out on top from these off spawns. And if there's one thing that's definitely been certain, it's that things are going to continue to stay spicing up even after the initial off spawns. We saw so many duos just getting so regularly into other mini box fight battles that it did make it rather difficult for teams to really establish themselves heading into that chaotic endgame.
I mean, I fully thought TuSonKami had it. You know, they were up on high, everything was looking okay. It was just that one individual player that decided to take it off of them, and then they, of course, got second. So those split-second decisions, not even that you make, even that other individual players can make all of the difference. So let's see if we get any more in game number 2.
Should come as no surprise, though, that a lot of this early game focus might have to be directed a little bit more towards Frosted Flats. Mr. Savage truly able to find success in game number 1 up against the likes of Merstash and Tayson, but you can always bet on Merstash and Tayson to look to run that right back and see whether or not they can actually change up the narrative here at Frosted. One more time, Savage truly prioritizing the gas station drop. Merstash, Tayson on the other set of buildings. It's going to be Savage and Truly with the opening shots.
They're always looking to try and start that fight a little bit quicker than Merstash and Tayson, who looks to try and play a little bit slower, but maybe we'll see how things develop over there. But here for Artskill and Lavero, it's going to be a very interesting fight. This one, of course, French on French violence against Akira Kurama. And look at things over here at Frosted Flats. Tayson and Merstash finally getting closed in on by Mr. Savage and Truly. Big fight here for Merstash and Tayson, because remember, they lost that first fight after a little bit longer of a wait than this one. So they're looking to try and change their fates here. And they might be trying to do that by actually disengaging here and not taking the fight straight away. But Merstash is actually still lurking, so maybe this is a bit of a bait-out play. Tayson further back. Savage and Truly trying to look for the angles to try and take him out, or at least get some shots onto him. Maybe a little bit of a lurk play from Merstash down below is the idea, but no, he's revealed where he is. Merstash is there. Maybe not, actually. Maybe that was actually Tayson spraying the ramp below. Yeah, and Merstash is still unaccounted for from Truly and Savage, but now as soon as I say that, he's been spotted out. Savage and Truly have spotted where Merstash is. They're going to surely close on in, which is what they start to do. Truly from one side, Savage from another. Tayson can only watch on as he tries to make his way over. They're giving a good fight here, Merstash and Tayson. As I say that, Merstash gets cracked down to low HP. Tayson, though, with a return shot onto Truly. Merstash gets back to Tayson, and now this is a different complexion, Taka.
But that is a bit devastating there, because right as Savage had kind of sniffed out the funny business that Merstash was getting up to, you would think that they would have been able to get a better collapse of that situation. But still, damage has been done. With Merstash and Tayson winning out that all spawn from Frosted, the next best case scenario right now for Savage and Truly is hoping that they're able to convert this into a victory royale, because it would likely lead to them at least knowingly being uncontested. Still potential for another team to decide, take their chances, but Heatwave Harbor, we were wondering how that one was actually going to end up. The Frenchies all kind of fighting each other, and Akira Kurama will be able to hit the ground running here. For Vanya and the Frizzy over at Wonkyland, seems like they have priority control, but Shapito and Daimler not gonna make it easy. Still looking to kind of show face, complicate things a bit.
Just to the south of them here, we just saw Skyjump actually trying to reboot Momsy, so they've completely switched to the other side of the map. Maybe it was Momsy that got taken down by somebody in the area. Of course, wasn't a great start for them. And yeah, look at this. Skyjump wasn't actually able to get that reboot off. And look who it is. It's TuSonKami, our second place from game one. just looking on over, so they must have heard that reboot. But unfortunately can't find the culprit of who was doing that reboot. So Skyjump manages to swim away for now. And it's already looking pretty dire for them. Although I suppose you have to say, Taka, they are still in the game, which is contrary to what they were in the first game.
Well, what makes it all the more interesting is knowing that Skyjump and Mumsy, last lobby, they tried to hedge their bets over at Chop Shop. Now they've gone completely opposite end of the map, opposite sides even, and fighting north of Golden Grove, just inviting TuSync Army to really try and defend some of their territory. It is a bit unfortunate, though, because now when you're stuck swimming away, it's just prone to draw attention. Potentially even have TuSync Army just continuing to trail that team. Khan and Reason, though, this time, no troubles immediately off spawn, but still looking to try and clear out the vicinity.
Round 3, new plays. Ritex against Reason and Khan. They spotted them out inside of that bush. There was no hiding from Reason and Khan. Remember the last time these guys fought, it was Reason and Khan that came out on top, looking to replicate that same level of success, getting some of that double cone piece control. Good shot return though, but it's not going to be quite enough for new players to take down. Reason can quickly heal and get back inside of the action as well. Khan tries to go on the wall, but can't quite find the angle either. Ritex doesn't look like he has actually the shield to heal up right here, and that's going to allow Khan just to close on through. New Plays is on another angle as well, but can't quite escape because Reason's looking for him. And it's all a decision now for Reason and Khan. Are they going to stay satisfied with this initial elimination? Are they going to try and close down New Plays? Again, though, it's those two teams clashing and going the way of Reason and Khan.
Just a great way to kind of send a bit of a message there from Reason and Khan. They don't want Noob or Ritex anywhere near their turf. They want to have full control. But obviously, other teams in a bit of a less uncontested predicament. Hugo trapped though, just waiting behind the bar. TZ and IZ have absolutely no idea until the scanner goes off. Pulsar scanner has completely revealed. Smart heads up play.
Oh.
But that's also going to draw a little bit of disruptions there for Izzy, who's just been on the escape, trying to wait for an opportunity to make a move for a reboot. When you're hovering the outskirts of the map like that, teams that haven't necessarily come to a conclusion with some of these early sneak play opportunities, well, they'll just be lurking about. Unfortunate there, Izzy might be able to get away, but Svi and Chicho, they're just trying to get their surge built up in the first place.
Yeah, not bad for these guys there. Just separate bases, looking for some shots on Arvahalo and Zivit in that area. And for some of the other teams around the map, a lot of these early fights can end in disaster, or they can end in... Oh, that wasn't what was supposed to... Hang on. That wasn't meant to happen. They were supposed to get the effect and then do that, instead of shockpaving each other or overdrive and each other away. There's Kiri and Yaxi make their way in towards the zone. Lixium and Hedra, of course, just next door. This is a big moment here for Kiri. I feel like we haven't seen the best of Kiri in the last couple of years. I remember he was sort of qualifying for grand finals. Maybe 2023, 2024 was sort of starting to cement himself as a top-tier player in the region, but we just haven't seen that level of gameplay from him. Now duoed up with Yaxi, a bit more of an upcoming player, of course, the Italian duo themselves. So excited to see what that duo can actually bring, whether we can sort of rekindle some of that previous Kiri magic that we were able to see previously. Never quite got to the very top, but maybe this is the catalyst for that resurgence here.
And it's tough too, because when you have those, you know, moments under the spotlight, even as short-lived as they might be, it's still just, you don't really forget about those instances in your career, especially when you're with new teammate. And not only that, but you're looking at the current day success of where some of your teammates might have ended up, right?
Yeah.
And for Kiri, seeing Ping and Ghost and how well things have actually played out for them, and they're given heats that they were able to avoid this whole prospect of the last chance lobby. But Radon and Bimbo, definitely a heat to remember for these two. They were just caught in so much action throughout the whole course of it, and they'll have to bring some of that fighting caliber here today. You can already see they got off to a pretty quick start. 2 eliminations. Looking back in, very quick collapse of the Roban that probably wishes he wasn't on the receiving end of, but sometimes it's just how the cookie crumbles, and still other teams just continuing to kind of pool over. Very high surge bases, but Tayson and Mustache sort of lingering towards the outskirts of Sinister.
Yeah, it was nice to see them obviously went off spawn there in the second game. I might have offended a lot of Savage fans with that, but it's good to see what they can now bring in these end games. Of course, they went down very early, of course, in that very last game, and managed to actually switch things up in the off-spawn battle here. So actually finally able to see what they can do, and of course that just amplifies the importance of this end game, because of course you never know what's going to happen off-spawn. But for Wi-Fi and Boris, this was a team that absolutely broke my heart when it came to, I think it was Heat 1. Because they placed second place in their final game. It was game number 5, only to, of course, Shark and Teeny. So you think maybe they just about did enough. No, they were 1 place off of qualification in their heat. And if they won that game, of course, they would have done it. But against Shark and Teeny, it's very, very difficult to come out on top. So I'm almost sort of rooting for these guys just to qualify through today, because they just had so much unlucky moments. There were so many unlucky moments, but I suppose if you don't get enough points, you're not worthy of qualifying. So need to reset from that and hopefully find some success in this lobby and, of course, in this fight right now.
And we'll have to cheer on our separate favors, I guess, in this type of instance, Mini, because Quicks and Zuki look like they've got Wi-Fi and Boris a bit on the run here. But Boris now trying to see whether or not he can switch up positional advantages, just lurking underneath the floors there. Quicks and Zuki, but Boris doesn't get the opening shot he was hoping for. It was a great lurk wraparound, but you're not able to net the damage after the fact. It's now put them back into a retreating circumstance, and Wi-Fi will be punished for it immediately. Double team there by Zuki and Quicks. So the first elimination has been claimed, but Quicks is relatively low, a bit injured. Pause for a moment, but when you're playing hip-to-hip next to your duo, it's just going to make it all the more complicated for Boris to actually intervene.
Oh, that sucks. I mean, yeah, Boris, it's unfortunate to say, but he has to do better there. You've got an edit on a wall. It's a free shot. The player's inside of the box, and he whiffs. And that fight could have gone so differently if he'd have connected with that shot. Now, though, all down to a solo, of course. Lost a lot of surge damage in the process as well. You saw only 11 above there on Boris, and it's going to be interesting to see how he actually approaches this. Of course, you can buy the reboot cards back, but I think in the sense that he needs to try and get some damage back now, he's going to try and stick around and get the little bit of damage return, almost a little bit of a refund on the damage that he just lost from Quicks and Zuki. And excited to see this duo, though. I know they're sort of your sort of team here, Taco, but Quicks is a player that I've sort of had my eye on for a little while. Sort of casted a couple like solo events, and he was just popping off in those. I think it was the sort of TCL solo events that they have for sort of the German and Swiss region, and he's a player that's really been popping off in those sort of solo competitions, so clearly has the ability. And let's take a look at the replay here from Strafito. Find the nice knock, and that's what you need to do when you have an edit on someone. Hit the shot. Easy.
Tough break there, though, for Elixium on the big screen. Unfortunately, not the type of outcome that you'd want to be caught in the middle of, but Thor killed the Ghosty. Still contending against each other. Both of these teams, though, relatively low in HP, but for Tarps and Ghosty, they definitely got the whites to heal through it. So, just a little bit of a delay of the inevitable here. They'll be able to pick up the pieces after the fact. Vanya and Nefrizi, though, they've also clearly fit in a spot of trouble here. An even exchange between themselves and Surefour. And when both players are just left in these isolated scenarios, it's just Vanya trying to play for the advantages of getting off the immediate reboot, but Surefour knows that this is also his best bet at getting back up in the running for a Victory Royale outcome. Trying to play, see whether or not they can close out.
Oh.
Great job to protect the make it loot there, and yeah, Vanya just does not get the chance. Immediately turned on, falling back to those pre-existing builds, and sadly Surefour just had the control.
Oh, again, I mean, you know, for the player of Vanya's experience, you'd expect him to be sort of in his own box. You'd expect him to understand this is not my piece control. This is not something that I can edit before popping that Chug Jug, but just a lapse in concentration there maybe from the man himself. Got plenty more games to go though, 3 more, which I suppose sounds like a lot, but when it comes down to it, they're in a bit of a difficult situation off spawn, so there's no guarantees they'll be making this stage of the lobby throughout the day. Nice little flyby elimination there, or knock I should say, from Combeck onto Izzy. I think he was actually credited with it in the end, but nicely done from Seti as well. Just buys him a little bit of that time, ability to actually get towards the zone, but not without getting looked at by a bunch of other players inside of this zone. See Nosif there as well, unfortunately now down to a solo, having to heal off inside of the storm, and this just makes things so difficult. This is not when you want to go down here, Taco, because winning it from this position as a solo, even if your name is Vanya or someone along those lines, it is incredibly difficult.
And this is only going to continue to get worse for some other players because Khan no longer next to Reason, despite the fact that they've been getting ahead of the lobby at the opening points of these past 2 games. It's that mid to end game conversion. Once we hit that first partial where players are really starting to show those little glimpses of struggle or success, and for Khan as a solo here, there is a lot of lobby still left to be played out. Only 118 above. The whole focus is just set to where his current position is at, and that is going to be a dropout, not of his choice. Just too many eyes on. Fitzpatrick more than happy to pick over the body loot here. They've got to be wary though. They know other teams looking to close in where they're at. A pretty big box fight also starting to build up directly next to them. And on both ends of the spectrum, they've just got a lot to get through before they're out in the clear. So much congestion just really building up on this particular side of the zone. Is now Yapko Panzer. This is one of those teams where I think a lot of people on paper would not have expected them to be in this current position, but you always have to draw back the fact that we almost didn't even see this duo in the first place. Big part of the reason why they even ended up reuniting was just due to the removal of the shock rocks. And they felt like they had a pretty good grasp of the competitive meta, decided, hey, let's just run it back since things have kind of shifted a little bit more in our favor. And yet, still here today, struggling with some of the surge, hoping that they'll be able to find some form of refresh to kind of put them across that finish line.
They did say on socials beforehand of this this competition they'll be going high every game, so expect to see them up on top of the lobby. Didn't see it really in game 1, but let's see if they are true to their statement as this game progresses into the end game right here. This is a team that I sort of mentioned at the beginning of the day, Akira Karama, double mythic on Akira right now as well. Does seem like they are continuing that ability that they have. Of course, we know this is a team that can turn things around so efficiently. Last major, remember, they qualified through to the major finals through a victory royale in their heat. So although they didn't go all the way to the last chance lobby last season, it was a victory royale that did it for the last grand finals. So maybe this is their sort of format here, but for Taste and Mustache, big end game for them, big moments. Maybe a chance to roll back the years for, I suppose, both of them, who haven't really had the greatest start to 2026, it must be said.
And to be completely fair to the two of them, compared to all of the other competitors in this lobby, they did only have 4 of those matches to work with in their Heats group. Just an unfortunate outcome for Mustache, having a circumstance where I believe his PC had blue screen prior to on the lobby starting, so didn't actually get a chance to make it into every single one of those lobbies. Sometimes that's just how things go, but drawing back towards where Combeck and Seti are at. Not on high ground. Not really working with any HP either. Just forced into a very grim situation here. And now Seti still trying to see whether or not he can claim Brightex along the way. Does get the finishing touches here, but even still, Mini left as a solo. That is just the worst type of outcome because you don't really even get to, you know, enjoy that moment of winning the fight initially. It's just that the spoiler's already been done, and Seti as a solo, contending with this sea of duos, trying to make his way even towards that front side of zone, but only has 2 overdrive grenades left to his name. Will at least be able to elevate just a bit here, get 1 or 2 tiles above ultimate low, which should keep him from getting taken down by a team that's looking back a little bit more central, but Kira and Karama, disaster striking at the worst possible moment. Now forced to sit and try and play for the revive here, and even if Karama gets back up in the running, they're gonna have to take a moment to pause. That's gonna lead them trying to duke their way through from the backside of zone.
Yeah, big moment there for Kira Karama. They're looking so strong before those pre-edits started coming through, but look who is looking strong. It's Tilio and his duo. Kovacs up on height as Seti falls down at the bottom of the lobby. There's only so far realistically that he could go. Is that Akira and Karama looking to go for height? No, they decide to go for front side of zone. Tayson Mustache still playing on those low ground layers as well, trying to ride out all the builds that they have inside of this lobby as Tayson tries to lead the way going front side of zone. Plenty of contestation on that layer as Mustache needs to try and get back to his wounded teammate in Tayson. Takes over control a little bit for himself as well, tries to block off a couple of those angles from above, and just finally a moment to breathe here for the experienced duo. Kovacs and Tilio still remain up on high, but if game number one is anything to go by, things can definitely topple down very quickly.
But one of the advantages the team on height has right now is that the zone is just max pooling over so much water. It is so complicated for these teams in these lower layers to really get their footing, to really build up any sort of rhythm. Karama and Akira, they just have not had the chance to heal. Even with the double chug chug in his inventory, Karama just has not had a moment to really pause and breathe. Finally will squeeze himself just into enough of a crevice to start utilizing some of this healing opportunity, but left as a solo, Akira paying the ultimate price here as Kovacs, Tilio starting to run out of material. They're dropping down, get a little bit more up close and personal with the rest of this lobby, and Mustache Tayson still leading the charge back to the low ground, back and healthy, seeing whether they can back each other up because they're looking every which way to try and capitalize on another elimination. They know everything comes down to just clearing out this lobby, putting themselves in the best possible position to come out with the win.
Look at this though, Gordete and Zays looking for a sneak play up on height. Tilio and Kovacs caught lacking. Look at that, misses the shot as well. Tilio inside the box. Ghosty is able to take him out in the end, but with losing his teammate Tarps, that's going to be a difficult end for them. And there's another team up on height now. They're taking advantage of all of that chaos. It's Rinzi, it is Cactus, and now they've been tumbled. This is all just mayhem up on height as Tayson continues to find eliminations. He's the fragger of this duo right now. Radiant looking to try and find some down below as well, as still Tayson continues to roll back the years, finding elimination after elimination.
Tayson might have had the perfect read on the lobby with high ground just being so regularly contested. He realized, let's just clear out what's taking place underneath, but Tayson, he'll still have to get one more elimination to try and clear the path forward. Mustache finding one up top, but Tayson has been taken out. Gordete has done enough damage here, but he's still so low, forced to drop. Mustache down to his final two builds, trying to see whether or not he can find a little bit more siphon material, has to close out on this elimination. Manages to get it just in the nick of time here, but for Clays, he'll have to wait and see whether or not Lobby 3 bodes a bit better here. Gordete, though, now looking to re-challenge Mustache up on the high ground, and this time around, though, Mustache going to get the better end of things. But Bimbo and Radion, one of the only healthy duos in this lobby. They don't have much material to work with. They're going to have to contend with a player just one tier above them, and they're hoping that Brutus and Mustache do enough damage to each other to make this a clean and easy refresh circumstance for the Victor Royale.
Mustache has the builds, though. Crix is going to have to drop on down at some point. You have to imagine Mustache is trying to force that, as he has plenty of materials to keep himself afloat. What he doesn't have right now, of course, is those heals. Can Mustache do what Mustache does best in solo clutch, as Bimbo and Radiant take out the final player in the middle? It's now all up to Mustache to try and solo clutch against Radion and Bimbo. The overdrive grenades come through. Mustache can't do too much about that. He will fall, and Radiant and Bimbo make their way into the Major 2 finals.
It's a tough break there for Mustache at the end. I think the Bimbo and Radion, whether they intended to or not, that split focus, Mustache can only look one way at a time. And unfortunately, it's going to be all success here for Bimbo and Radion. So, Desk, let's hear what you guys got to say.
I was so entertained by that Mustache show, but congratulations to Radion and Bimbo. They managed to survive the chaos that was happening on all layers of this lobby, Takata, and they've got themselves out of dodge and into the finals.
Yeah, this is big news for them. They were contested at Sinister Strip, so it was a bit tough in the early game, but ultimately now all they needed was that win, and they got it. I was a little scared for a moment, I'm not gonna lie. I saw Merstash kind of primed up there on height, getting Elim after Elim, and I was like, okay, wait, this isn't no regular 2v1, but it was a quick cleanup for Bimbo and Radion, so it's what you love to see, Lev.
Yeah, no, big congrats to Radiant and Bimbo. I sort of grimaced there at the end with Mustache coming second. It was always going to be a tough one, but they didn't give him the 1v1, right? Like, he could have actually, like, because of the play they made to sort of like shock because they didn't have the match, right? Like, they were just like, we need to force the issue. We don't have the match. We just need to make the play. And for a second, like, you know, there was a possibility for him there, right? Where he can just isolate it with Radion. Doesn't quite hit the right shots, unfortunately for them. But they will not care about how clean that was. They got the win that they wanted and needed. Unfortunately, another second place for Tayson and Mustache. Obviously, first one today, but they had one in the heats, right? And again, that's 2 opportunities now to win a game and just get into grands. They barely miss out.
I will say that also in the heats, we saw Mustache having to do a lot of that work on his own. But going into this end game to Carter, it felt like it was much more of a team effort.
It really did. So hopefully they can pick things up in these next matches.
Well, we are going to have a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about more of the duos that we feel are in contention. Radiant and Bimbo took our second victory royale of the night, so they are out of the lobby and they're already in the grand finals. But we've got 3 more games to go tonight. So let's talk about who is looking sharp and with the potential to take the next win. So in terms of the lobby, it was exciting to see Merstash and Tayson actually taking off. They had a disastrous first game, losing in the Osborne to Savage and Truly, but this time they were able to take the W, and Merstash very nearly took the victory royale, Levin.
Hey, I mean, it was fun to watch. I could feel the excitement in Minnie's voice just seeing Tayson get these limbs. I mean, it did feel like we were rewinding back to the chapter 2 days where he was on top of the world. And unfortunately, when he goes up for height here, you start thinking, oh my God, he is just going to single-handedly just take over this game and just win it for them. Like, he's going to do everything needed. And it doesn't quite pan out. Merstash drops down, and the Merstash sort of gets into his element a bit to cut, and you're thinking, okay, hold on, like, Merstash might just do this. It's tough. Like I said before we went to break, again, a second place. The nature of the second place is obviously tough because it's a 1v2 for Merstash, so you know he's not expected to win there. But, you know, to be that close and potentially miss out, it does hurt and it does sting.
Yeah, it might have been a different game if Tayson was able to shoot just a millisecond faster, but I mean, leading up to that, he already had 6 eliminations. They were looking lethal going into those final moments, and like you said, it's kind of unfortunate they had to do a 1v2 in the end, but hey, in terms of the off spawn, it's 1-1. Savage took it once, now Tayson Merstash took it once, and both times these players have made it to the end games and performed incredibly well. Savage got a top 8, I believe, with a decent amount of eliminations, and obviously we just saw the second place from Tayson and Merstash, so very excited to kind of see how this continues.
I think the big problem though that you have is, like you just said, they didn't win the first one. There's no guarantee they win the next one or the others, right? So it's like it's tough. I think based on how that Oswald goes, it'll probably stay somewhat even as the games bounce back and forth. But yeah, you gotta make these count, man. It's not gonna be easy.
It speaks to the caliber of these players, though, the fact that they are making it into these end games when the terrain is so tough. I mean, that low ground was absolutely killer for the less experienced duos, having to contend with the water as well as the chaos all around them. But a duo that can contend with that and actually looking already more consistent than they did in their heat is Yapko and Panzer to Carter. I mean, this is a duo that's already showing signs of life.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about them earlier on, kind of alluding to they pop off when they get the opportunity to, but I mean, their placement so far, 40th in the first game, so it did not go their way, and now they finally made it to the end game, but it wasn't really that pop-off game we would have expected. The loot was looking so good. Double Chug Jugs, Mythic, I mean, they had everything they needed, but they went down in 15th, kind of dudding it, Levin.
Yeah, I'll be honest, man. I don't know if highlights is the right word for what we just saw from them there, right? They had the 1 elim 15th place. It's going to have to be much, much better than that, especially based off of what we're seeing from some of the other teams so far.
Yeah, well, let's see if they can continue moving upwards. I do still think that the fact that they are at least making it that far is something that's maybe giving me false hope. Maybe I'm too much of a fangirl for these players and trying to manifest. So I'm just going to keep doing that for them as we go into our next game. Takata, I think you're probably manifesting good things for a Spanish duo in the lobby. I mean, we saw a pretty good showing from Durden and Gordete.
Yeah, I'd say they're the most consistent right now. I mean, they've got 6th place, they've got 4th place. In terms of consistency, they are number 1 right now in placements. They took out Tayson in that match. You can see how aggressively playing for the high ground now. Unfortunately, Gordete lost his teammate when he did retake high, and this, I'm just curious how, oh yeah, I was actually curious how Tayson ended up going down there. It was just a quick shot from Gordete. He was ready, but it kind of, I don't want to say ruined, but made it much more difficult for Merstash in those final moments. Now, hopefully that they don't have the difficulty off spawn like Tayson and Merstash do. They have 3 more chances of making this happen, so all it takes is 1.
It's interesting seeing, oh, apologies, jump in, Levin, jump in.
I was just going to say, I wish you guys could see at home just how excited Takata gets whenever a Spanish team is just doing anything. I've known this guy for like 5 years, and I've just there's no more peak excitement than when a Spanish team is doing anything good in the game. It's unreal.
You know what, production can see our cameras when we're watching the games. I feel like we need to get some replay highlights of Takata, especially if we see this duo succeed tonight. Just teasing for you there, Durden and Gogita. I'm manifesting for you too. We're ready to go into game number 3 though now, so let's head back to Taco and Miniminer.
It's crazy to think that we are already approaching, technically speaking, the halfway mark of today, Mini. And with 2 teams having confirmed their spots on the battle bus for the Major 2 Grand Finals, time is running out and the pressure is building up for everyone else in this lobby.
It really is. This has been so good so far. So many high takes, so much chaos in those endgame moments. Talk about Takata getting excited about the Spaniards. I know one guy that'll be excited about those Italians winning a game. Mike TV, wherever you are watching on, I'm sure, doing a viewing party. I'm sure their chat's going absolutely crazy right now as well. But it's great to see so many of these teams that are having consistent games. But ultimately, all that matters is making sure you actually get that win. It doesn't matter about staying consistent. It doesn't matter about having good end games, solo clutching seconds. It ultimately doesn't matter apart from maybe mentality, Taco. So this is really where things start to get real for our teams, because of course we're running out of games as the day goes on.
I do think that there is a silver lining, though, for some teams where, you know, maybe your placements are increasing just one little bit after the next. But here in game 3, let's see who's going to bring it home.
Here it is, game number 3, and lots of questions still to be answered about this lobby. Who will rise and who will fall as we get towards the halfway point of the day? And speaking of rising and falling, we've seen both from both teams here over at the Frosted Flats area. It looks as though Savage is already getting off to a good start here. It looks as though these guys always go for this slurp track, getting them that upper hand earlier on, just to get all of that shield, which gives them that freedom, that flexibility to actually attack. And I think they've understood this, because Tayson and Mustache are very split at the beginning of this fight here, Taco. And I think because Truly and Savage were able to actually VOD review in between this game and the last, they actually were able to actually probably identify that, and maybe Tayson's seen that too. Mustache looking for some shots, not connecting from the other side as well. But this is a much quicker fight than what we saw in the previous 2 games.
But it's so complicated right now for Mustache and Tayson, because Mustache, we saw what he was rocking with. He didn't have a shotgun actually available, so he can't really afford to get that close with Truly and Mr. Savage just yet. They're going to have to continue trying to see what sort of leftover loot they can come up with here, because eventually these two will be forced to clash. We've already seen back-to-back lobbies where they have to find an immediate answer to the other. And it is a bit more painful for Mustache and Tayson, I would wager, just given the fact that they had such a close finish in that last lobby. It's always going to be kind of eating away with you in the back of your mind, but you just have to brush it off. You have to say go next. And for Truly and Savage, they're trying not to be sent back into the next lobby, but Mustache and Tayson are really heating up here at Frosted Flats. Tayson fully healthy, but with no materials, he'll be forced to try and farm out whatever he can squeeze from the available area. Truly lurking overhead, though. Do they know that he's in the tree? That's the real question left to be answered here. But Tayson and Mustache still yet to go down just yet. But Tayson's on the end of his legs, and sure enough, Mustache chasing Savage now every which way. They're both just so wiggly, but it's going to be Truly who actually winds up taking out Mustache at the very end of it. Just lost track of what had actually gone down inside of the building. So a great bounce back here for Truly and Savage.
Get Truly a cape. A lot of talk about what he was doing in the heats. Didn't really have a massive part to play, but what he's just done there is absolutely save Mr. Savage's bacon, because he was down, he was out. Stash may have just got that finish, but if it wasn't for Truly coming on through, absolutely vital little play there from Truly. Oh, here we go. Look at that. Beamed from Rigball. And him and Spari now can actually continue on with their game. He said, no way. You're not running away from us. We will pick up that second one. But let's have a look at the first. Spari here. Yeah, nice shots. Side of the box, of course. Then his teammate tried to get away. We saw exactly what happened to him, so nice early fights here.
Frenzy and Cactus, one more time. Trying to contend with the likes of Tortilda and Dusty. Renzi will trust Cactus to try and close things out. Does get an opportunity, though, take advantage of Dusty losing sight of where he was at for a moment. Thorkild now looking to build up just a little bit here, but still choosing to stick close to his duo. Best form of backup is making sure that you can immediately kind of take over cover fire for the other, and the two will sort of recognize that this isn't really worth pursuing. They're going to opt to fall back.
Look at this though, Yapko Panzer, the Analyst broke it down. They haven't really got going today, and let's see what happens here. Yeah, nice. Limb onto Flame right there. That's super important for them just to get their games going. They just haven't been able to find a lot of those eliminations. We didn't get to see too much from them, especially for a duo of their quality. Oh, they're a fantastic trio with Seti, of course, as well. And as you mentioned, Taco, they split, got back together. I think it was Panzer that was more than happy to actually move over to NA if he, or Yapko, I think it was actually, that was more than happy to move over to NA. He was looking at all different options. So this really has to work for them, or else he'll sort of live to maybe rue that decision to get back together. Now, though, a lot of these early fights are a little bit more calm, I suppose you could say. A lot of the players are just looking for a few different angles. We can see that right here. Colson Nog, 37. Was 37 himself. Looking to see what they can do here. I know Nog actually claims this area as sort of his duck. He likes to, I think it's just to the south. There's one particular duck on the map that he likes to claim. Maybe they broke it. Oh no, maybe it's in the distance. Yeah, you can see it on the right. That duck is his, all right? Nobody take Nog's duck, all right? It's his.
You'd hope so, at least, but doesn't look like that other duo is willing to budge anytime soon. Kombec and Seti looking in on what they've been getting up to since the start of this lobby mini. And game one, obviously, tried to overtake the high ground, but saw just how rapidly, you know, the rug was kind of snatched from underneath their feet. And game two, never really even had the chance. So the back-to-back lobbies just sort of fizzling out of your control does start to weigh on you a bit here, given that they both had a relatively rough chapter in general. And it would feel weird to have another grand finals where you're just not getting to witness Seti after all of his stature. Same case scenario too for Kombec, another really veteran player of the EU competitive scene. But they still got a lot of road ahead of them before we figure out where exactly they decided to park it at the end of this game. Yapko Panzer hovering Sunken Shores. They know there's likely another team working their way around this area, but no fight just yet.
Momsy and Skyjump, of course, a team that switched over their drop spot in that last game. It didn't really work out for them. We saw Skyjump having to get the reboot through, and then, of course, didn't quite actually make it happen and had to swim all the way around the map. So it doesn't seem like they're having as many troubles here, although they are in a similar sort of area of the map, as is Vanya and Nefrizi up towards the Wonky Land area. As Domler and Strapito looking to find some angles. I suppose this is the good thing about Wonky Land. You can, of course, rotate in a little bit later with the wheel, but can mean these fights just drag out that little bit longer because both teams know that. Vanya just looking for an angle, and we haven't seen the best of Vanya for so long, really. It feels like throughout this entire year we just haven't been able to see the heights that Vanya can achieve. So I feel like he's the sort of player that all he needs is one big event, one solo clutch in a lobby like this just to reignite that fire in his belly, because of course it was a second place at the Global Championships with his trio at the end of last year, and that really is tough to swallow, I'm sure, for someone like Vanya, who's just had so much success last year as well. And it's going to be interesting to see if they can, of course, qualify themselves through to the Global Championships this year as well, because he's the sort of player, really, Taka, that you just want to see on that level, on that stage. He was interacting with the crowd so well in Leon. He was really just a really great player to watch, not just for his gameplay, which is always nice to see on that.
Well, it's also just tough because you already touched on it, but second place at the last Global Championship and then potentially having to work with just the last chance qualifier as your hopes of, you know, cementing your position at this upcoming one. That's a really tough spot to be in. It's just not the type of competitive year that anyone could have expected for how much success Vanya actually attained throughout the course of Chapter 6.
It's Savage and Truly here as well, and the way they're playing this is very, very similar to what we saw from Sky and Scroll playing this drop. I have no doubt they would have actually VOD reviewed that, building up inside of the POI, getting all the heals up there, of course, as well. So usually that would be a good thing. It's like, let's VOD review Sky and Scroll, because of course they're one of the best teams in the region, but they didn't have a great heat, so it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of develop on that strategy that Sky and Scroll have coined here, as Tarps and Ghosty are getting into a bit of a fight. I said, say really that Ghosty's the one getting into the fight, unfortunately, getting pretty much shut down immediately here, Taco. It was Tarps having to heal up all the way back there. Chicho Skaviyev just can't believe what they've found, because, hang on a sec, there's a solo on our wall. We're taking him out, and there's no sign of his duo. So a little bit of a llama for them here in the Storm. And again, this is a team that you'd expect a lot from as well. Just the ability of both players, the experience of both players. Just haven't seen it yet, especially in their heat as well. They, of course, didn't contest SETI at their Cami split drop spot. Just, I don't know if it's a lack of confidence at the moment, but interesting to see what they actually end up doing.
I have a feeling it may have been an involvement of these vendings, and it was Ghosty who just really did not get to fully capitalize on that opening shot. But heads up play there from Chicho and Skaviyev. They're just kind of hanging about the vending machine in the first place, and it's not uncommon to see players staying inside of the Storm, especially during these early phases where the tick damage just, it's not really much to be too pressed over. But now Kurama and Akira find themselves trying to work their way in. A little bit of contention from some other teams that are already pre-established. Still, once you make it into that edge of zone, you'll be able to look back, gauge whether or not there's going to be other late party arrivals that you can actually take advantage of, get some additional surge damage on. The big standout factor, though, for so many of these teams today, Mini, has just been actually staying with your duo into that final zone. If you can make it into the last 1 or 2 moving zones and still have your duo with you, the odds of winning just skyrocket.
Yeah, it does, and it's tough because you can have such a good run of games and you can feel like you're on top of the world, and then towards the end of the day, if you don't win, it just means the same as the team that went down on spawn every single game. So it is a really tough, I think it's one of those sort of lobbies, and of course I never played at this level, but I feel like it's a sort of lobby where it really tests you mentally, because you have to pick yourself up after each and every game, whether you had a good one or a bad one, because a bad one means anything that isn't a win. So it's really, really tough on these guys, and particularly for some of our newer players to this sort of lobby that maybe aren't as experienced, that aren't sort of veterans of the lobby. You would expect those sort of players maybe to crumble under the pressure, but some of them, they just turn up when the pressure is on and the lights are brightest. And that's really what can really kickstart a lot of these players' careers. The likes of Roban, for a long time, sort of a player that a lot of people would have sort of considered one of the better teams in Europe. When he was playing with Axe-Force back in the day, I think it was sort of chapter 4 when they were really popping off. I think they got like a top 5, top 6 in the major finals then. And they were just looking really good. They were a scary team up on height. They were always in those sort of lobbies and dominating, finding eliminations, jumping in, and sort of, in his case, it's sort of gone the other way. It just hasn't been the greatest return to duos for him and his career lately. So hoping that Shadox can be that player to sort of reignite his positioning as one of the better players in Europe.
It's also a bit of a testament to just what kind of new talents are really starting to surface and emerge from the EU region, and that's definitely only adding to the problems for some of our more veteran and experienced players, is that you are just having to contend with so many fresh faces that can always complicate things quite a bit. But Dexy and Faded caught against Mumsy and Skyjump, and Mumsy, Skyjump at least will have the opening celebrations. Skyjump making sure that they can continue marching forward here, though. Things did get a little bit dicey there for a moment, but definitely tough experience there for Dexy and Faded. That could have been a real opportunity to try and build some rhythm here in this third match. So instead we'll have to see just how far Mumsy and Skyjump can actually take it. They are a team that is more than capable of pulling out a victory royale in the final moments. So this is definitely their type of playground. But when everyone else is also hunting for that same winning circumstance, you've got to keep what's about you. Reason, Khan, applying a little bit of lobby pressure here for good reason. Just barely above that surge threshold. They can tell they're going to need to do a lot more damage if they intend on trying to have some smoother rotates later on.
Yeah, it's weird with Reason and Khan because I feel like in these open formats where they're sort of able to get a lot of eliminations, they're just popping off every single aspect. All their fights just seem to be going their way when it comes to those sort of formats. Then they get into these set lobby events, like the Heats, like this event. It just hasn't quite been the same explosiveness that we saw from them, of course, in those open formats. Again, it's of course a different format, but you would expect them to carry a lot of that fighting ability through. So quite surprising, obviously, to not see them perform as well as we expected in the Heats, and then even here today, not quite been at the races. But of course, this is a good opportunity for them to find that form. Couldn't quite find the actual elimination onto that, but were able to get a little bit of the loot and can make their way inside of the zone. And it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of bounce back from that. I saw on socials, Reason's reaction to not qualifying through in Heats was just Jeej. So, you know, I guess he's taking it in his stride a little bit. A lot of people in the replies sort of saying the football's left him type comments, so maybe he has a bit of a point to prove in that regard. I don't think so. I think Reason's still a very top player. But it's just hasn't quite been able to work for them in the sort of set lobby formats. I don't know what it is exactly, but hopefully they can make it all happen now.
Heats could just be a little bit more forgiving too on the mental in comparison to this style of format in the Last Chance, where you know the winning factor is all that really matters. So some of those risks that you might have been able to sort of justify opting for earlier on, you know, you might find yourself second guessing in the moment here in today's competition. Not saying that that's going to be the case necessarily for a player like Reason, but it's just those little thoughts that, you know, they can sometimes flare up at the wrong instance and be a very big distraction. Right now for Panzer, though, he's hoping that the rest of this lobby is a little bit more preoccupied with itself than where he's at, but he has got quite a ways to go. He'll be forced to continue trying to wrap around a bit here, but when you are just so far where you need to be, still has so much ground to cover, only 3 overdrive grenades left to do it, and the Chug Jug just barely going to manage to take him over to a healthy position, but one well-placed bump shot, and that's going to be the end of the line here for Panzer. Just kind of hoping that nobody else sees him. He wants to get that surprise shot off onto either Clays or Skos.
Oh.
He is just running out of everything.
Max pull there as well. That's so unfortunate for him. Just everything going the wrong way for him. Quite literally in terms of the zones as Reason and Khan. A little bit more of a favorable position and some favorable aim from Khan as well to take down Mexi. That's some nice beams from the controller man himself. That's what you want from your fragger in the team, as looking to find yet another one of all the players that are still rotating through. One of those teams is Akira and Karama. Still trying to find a little bit of form in this game as well. Artskill just below Reason and Khan right now. The unfortunate thing about that, Alim, was that they weren't actually able to get any of that loot. Reason sort of looking now backside of zone. Beautiful beam onto Akira, trying to wrap all the way around the builds of the rest of the lobby. So they're sort of looking at all these different angles as we take a look at Akira here. Actually spotted someone out inside of the cone. Beakaboo back to the lobby there in that one. So that's going to give them a nice little boost, a little bit of a llama loop for them to continue through this endgame.
Yeah, they really did not have a whole lot of material count there. I believe 16 builds is what it looked like. It was rocking just then for Truly and Savage. Unfortunately, despite some of their early success, it has now fallen exclusively onto Truly's shoulders to see whether or not he can clutch up yet again. And that is a tall ask this early on. Then he just starting to enter towards the true endgame environment here is Vanya also dancing around a bit, but for Reason and Khan finally making their way towards the high ground. And this is something that the desk also highlighted very early on before today's competition even kicked off. And it's somewhere that we've seen Reason and Khan have so much success, and now Khan kind of trying to figure out whether or not he can get that elimination onto Chicho. Chicho being forced to drop all the way down to where the rest of the congestion is building, but Khan still giving chase. He'll find Panzer for it. Chicho still barely managing to just scrape by here, and Reason healing back up, but won't have any problems making his way towards that next front side. They are going to need more material. Seti dropping down as far as he can go just to reunite with Combat, and not only that, but needs a moment to try and heal back up. Trying to stick towards that front side of zone, but the pressure from height is just making that so complicated.
Great work here from Karno, dropping down, getting eliminations, not getting knocked, not losing HP, getting all of those materials for them to be able to retain that high ground up above right now is truly in a completely different situation. They're looking so healthy. He's looking so weak in terms of everything right now as Chicho and Scavi are able to power through the rest of the lobby down on the mid ground as they try and elevate themselves. They see that hill coming up. Look who's on height again, though. It's Kovacs and Tilio. They'll be hoping that they'll be able to have a little bit more success than they previously have had. They've knocked down the Kings of Height right now and are looking to try and make this game count. Vanya in a bit of a box situation, trying to get out, escapes very well, and the Frizzy quite chilling in his position. But one team that's not, after looking so good, it's Khan and Reason. The builds are dwindling, the players are dropping, and they're going to have to try and find a refresh.
But they are still managing to stay at least a couple of tiles up from where the rest of the pack is at. Now finally looking for an opportunity to collapse onto Momsy and Skyjump. Another big elimination here for Khan. And that material refresh could be the ultimate difference maker here. Truly, somehow, some way, though, has managed to keep trekking forward, hoping that he fares a bit better here. One tier out of where everyone else is at, but for Vanya, the problems just keep mounting up. Stuck in a corner, trying to play out the med kit, doesn't get a chance, dropped by another player and claimed by the lobby. Kovacs and Tilio still trying to see if they can stave off Reason and Khan, but Khan made it towards the front side of zone first, gets some punishing shots in, but losing Reason along the way now leaves him as a solo, and he's just so preoccupied with trying to take out other players directly underneath him. Gets one onto Victor, but can't stick around to gather the body loot, trying to see if he can connect even more shots. Every little bit counts right now for Khan, but he can't waste any moments. He has to try and keep moving forward. Unfortunately, that's going to be his last as he is also taken down. And now Fakey trying to see whether or not he can bring down Kovacs and Tilio.
Look at that, though. Height have fallen yet again. Nobody's looking for it because nobody has the materials to do it. Kovacs down to 15 HP. Will find the finish, but will not last any longer as Chicho now as a solo. Can you do it for your team? Truly, can you do it for your team? We've seen Savage clutching up so much over the past weekend. Now the shoe is on the other foot, and it's big shoes to fill for Truly right now in this endgame. Cactus and Rinzi, one of only 2 duos left in this lobby. The other one, Boris and Wi-Fi, looking to try and repair what happened in the heat. They came so close. Can they now do it, or is it going to be one of our other teams in this endgame? Truly, still as a solo, finds Wi-Fi. That's one of the duos, but can he find the refresh? Still operating so well on these mid-ground layers. Doesn't connect with that shot, retreats on back, and can continue to power through.
Heartbreaking circumstance there also for Truly, as he'll have to watch Wi-Fi just narrowly escape. But now, Truly, can he take out Rinzi? He's gotten one in Cactus, but Rinzi will be able to return fire. Fakey, who managed to avoid the line of sight from all of this chaos that was unfolding underneath. He was actually going to be the one to get that elimination clearance onto Cactus, but Boris now looking for the chop, hoping that he can succeed in this 1-versus-1 outcome. Fakey still overhead. Boris, overdrive grenade, waiting for the prime opportunity to strike, but Fakey, he has no materials. He's just trying to dive directly into the box here. Boris has got to connect just a singular shot, and he finds it. Fakey with the wraparound. It's just no good. No materials and no chance of taking this one away. And for Boris, that is a huge outcome, a big hurdle to overcome.
They've done it. They have done it. Second place in one of the games in Heat. 16th place, 1 place outside of qualification range. It took them to the last chance qualifier, but it's taken them to the Major 2 finals.
What a performance. I really love the Boris under the box then. Peekaboo Boris, we'll see you in the grand finals lobby. That was me channeling my inner mini miner there. Another really exciting end game to gather.
Wow, I'm looking too. Both these duos had basically no points going into this match. They had a rough first 2 games, but now with Boris and Wi-Fi getting that victory royale, it was more than enough to send them to the finals with that intense 1v1.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to do it, you know, especially like you say, when you start the day quite frankly, as poorly as they have, to come through and just get the win like that, it is so satisfying. Mini highlighted it so well. They came close during the heat. Another example of one of those teams where just it felt like everything went wrong for them in that last game of the heat, where you come second and you finish 16th place, 1 out. None of that matters anymore. They get the chance to play in the major finals, and hopefully they can show us more of this.
Yeah, I love to see it. I mean, this is exciting. This is exciting, but at the same time, it's also fueling for players like Fankey, who lost that 1v1 by going straight in without any materials. But as you were alluding to, Levin, after getting 16th in heat, 1 placement off qualifying, it can be soul crushing, but being able to make it through the last chance qualifier is another level of hype. So now that we have 3 duos qualified, there's only 3 spots left.
And the lobby for the grand finals, guys, is already looking absolutely stacked, and we still have some big names yet to qualify who are fighting for the last 2 spots, because that's right, we only have 2 more games to go tonight. So we're gonna go grab ourselves a proverbial cuppa, and we'll see you in a few. It's nearly last orders at the last chance lobby, but we've got 2 more treats to send your way, because all of these duos are desperate to not miss out on the major 2 finals. Let's take a look at the players in focus powered by Milk and see some of the big hitters from tonight's lobby. And that's the only thing about hitting big, is it doesn't mean anything if you cannot get a victory royale, Evan.
Yeah, I'm glad you said the last bit at the end, you know, just because it's like, you could play as good as you want, it doesn't mean mish. You have to win And so, you know, some of these players I think have been, you know, key in almost winning for their teams throughout the day, Takara, right? Obviously, Khan's had some big moments of Reason. Durden, you know, on the height with Zays and Gordetti have had some big moments as well on the height. I think we're seeing a lot of the height guys sort of step up, but ultimately, yeah, you got to translate it to the Vic Roy.
Yeah, I'm surprised actually that Khan's the most damage dealt, because two of their matches, they went down in like 20-something, 30-something in one game. This most recent one, Khan popped off, they got 7th, but before that, they weren't making top 10s, and he's still topping the charts on damage dealt, so that's quite impressive.
Well, we need to check in with the situation at Frosted Flats because Mersash Tayson are going up against Mr. Savage and Truly in that off-spawn battle to kick off the games. And it's currently 2-1 to Savage, Levin.
Yeah, and this one was probably the messiest one of all three we've seen today. You know, it was close. For a moment, it felt like maybe Mustache was going to turn it around the moment Tayson goes down, but Truly was very quick to come to Savage's aid. Again, I think when the fights are more scrappy, from at least the 3 that we've watched, when the fights are more scrappy, it feels like Truly and Savage are handling those moments a bit better, right? But for Tayson and Mustache, I think the key for the next couple games will be to just try to stall things out, right? Play, you know, control the pace of the fight a bit more. When Truly and Savage put their foot on the pedal, it just seems that, you know, they're the ones in a better position.
Yeah, and speaking of this most recent match too, Savage did go down quite early, as you can see, but Truly had a phenomenal clutch. I mean, their placements in the games that they've won, the off spawn, they've got an 8th and then 4th in this most recent match. Now, Tayson and Mustache have only won 1, but they did get 2nd in that single match. So what's kind of heart-crushing is that both of these duos perform so well when they make it off spawn, but they're almost at this disadvantage where they just don't have as many matches to actually play out and show what they're made of.
And it's so crushing for us, I feel like, because Savage and Truly, this is a new duo, but we're seeing the potential of them, and that potential could be cut short if they don't make it through the next 2 games. And Reason and Khan as well. This is a duo that's putting on entertaining performance after performance, and they were blazing a trail through the end game. Unfortunately, though, Khan's chances were cut short, Levin.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's tough. It's tough because the way these guys are playing in a consistency format, right? They'd be looking great, you know? Things would be looking good with how they're playing, but yeah, I mean, height is going to be high stakes in this lobby. We know it. We know it's going to be hard to hold on. We know it's going to be, you know, hard to actually avoid just a team catching you at the wrong timing or just sneaking their way around you where you're not expecting it. But these guys are doing a lot of the right things, and so almost in the same way we had, who was it? iDrop and Marius, not Marius. It was Marius and Fredoxy, sorry, in the heats, who were just going for height every single game. Like, I'd advise Khan and Reason to just keep doing what they're doing. Try not to fall off of height, of course, but like just keep doing what you're doing, and eventually their win might just come.
Yeah, it was looking crazy for a moment there from Khan. What's interesting about this, though, is when they do take height, the issue isn't the first team that jumps up and tries to contest it. And we've seen, you know, Khan Reason, they can normally handle that. They can handle the first contestation. It's all the other teams that look up and they're like, oh, there's a build fight happening. There's a few people fighting. Now is our time to strike. We want this win. We want this high ground. And everybody starts piling up and the chaos unfolds. It's what we saw throughout the date. And now with 2 more chances, I don't know. It's going to be really hard.
So you've already mentioned, Levin, you think Reason and Khan should continue going for that high ground. What about the likes of Tayson and Mustache? Say they win this off-spawn battle against Savage Truly. What are you doing if you're them?
I mean, doing what they did in the only other game we got to see them play out, right? As far as just, again, a good end game from these guys where both of them can stay alive, right? I think the key, like the casters keep on sort of, you know, banging on about, is just trying to just keep both players up. Just gives you a fighting chance, or you might just stumble into the right amount of loot to just keep you ticking in the game.
And Takata, you are coach for Durden and Gordetti, doing it for Spain. Now, we've seen them making these fun but risky plays for the high ground. They need to do a Reason and Khan. They need to just keep sending it upwards.
I think the issue with taking those risks is they were the most consistent going into this last match, but they went down a little too early in this match, and they're no longer holding that consistency throne. But you got to take those risks if you want to win one. So I want to see them keep doing it.
And you might as well take those risks, because judging by the end game so far, nowhere is safe. Let's head into game 4 with Miniminer and Taco.
Only 2 spots remain, and with lobby number 4 just on the horizon, Mini, this is where the pressure and being able to overcome it is really going to start to shine for our leftover competitors. But it is a very, very difficult spot to be in. Absolutely everyone is going to be hunting for that Victory Royale, so we'll finally get a chance to see who's actually going to bring it home here in game 4.
While the casters were talking, all the analysts were talking, I should say, I made a list of all the teams. Mr. Savage Truly, Mustache Tayson, Chicho Skavi, Nefreezy Vanya, Seti Kombek, Akira Karama, Khan Reason. Big names. And what I notice about that, it's more than 2. So we'll be seeing plenty of our big names not making it here, but looking like Mr. Savage, straight off the bat, already taking down Tayson and Mustache. And Tayson and Mustache on that list are going to have to wait until the very last game now. It's going to be a long, long, long half an hour for them. Let's see exactly how that went down. Mr. Savage first to the gun. Very, very quick indeed. Tayson and Mustache trying to switch up their strategy to actually land on Savage and Truly at the slurp truck, and their attempts have not been successful. So yeah, the analysts broke it down, how that fight went. It went in the favor of Mr. Savage and Truly because they just seem to be better in those close-range encounters.
Bit of a heartbreaking defeat there too, when you think about it, and they're not the only ones going through it right now. The gloves have certainly come off in this lobby, as TZ and Eyes will be able to claim Cluster Coast. Initially at the starting point of today's matches, we were seeing these teams knowingly that they were going to be contesting each other, but still willing to sort of have a little bit more distance between the other, but now that is just not the case whatsoever. Reason and Khan strolling on over to where Kombek and Seti are at, and they are not wasting any time whatsoever. Another elimination, another player that's going to be forced to contend with, can I even make it for that reboot opportunity in the first place? But everyone in this lobby just absolutely duking it out. Non-stop action taking place across the map here.
Oh, did all that prep going into the day. You wrote notes, you wrote sheets of things, ripped them all up. We've got 2 more games to go, and that's exactly what all these teams are doing. They are trying anything and everything to qualify through here in this penultimate game. Nefreezy and Vanya look like they've been in a bit of a battle earlier on here against Strapito and Domla. This is one of those fights that have just dragged out throughout the entire of the day. They've been at Wonky Land for so much longer, and this is where their plan just gets chucked out of the window as well. Domla takes down Nefreezy. Vanya's the next target. Vanya walking up to Domla and unfortunately walking to his demise. Domla and Strapito will finish the fight much quicker, and again, it's an awkward situation for Nefreezy and Vanya. Another one of those big names. They're gonna have to do it in the last game here.
Oh man, Nikov, maybe close your eyes and look away for a moment, because this is just so, I think it would just be like a sinking stone in your belly, surely. It is a very tough spot to be in from the players' perspective, and for all those cheering them on also, and just knowing that they are not the only ones in that position. There are just so many top dog teams that you would just expect better from, but it's just that difficult. It is so hard to really get your bearings when everyone in this lobby is just switching things up last second. You can't really expect anything more than just knowing that you're going to probably be surprised at some point, some form or another. There's now Kiri and Yaxi. They've got Trappy and Hugo on the run here, but still being a bit patient. Not looking to immediately try to jump into the box, even with the big HP advantages. Actually just looking to play the guaranteed angles, the guaranteed safety measures, because they don't want to find themselves too low to try and battle with another team if somebody else should pull up towards Shaken Sanctuary. But fortunately enough for Kiri and Yaxi, they will manage to come out on top. A good set of eliminations to kind of get the ball rolling here, but it's like everyone is shoving that same boulder uphill.
Look at this replay here from Skyjump, a team that have been sort of roaming the map. And look at that, Domla, Strapito. They would have been celebrating. They still had their party hats on. They've had to take them off pretty quickly after that off-spawn dominance against the Frizzy. So big changes here, as Skyjump and Momsy, of course, did change drop spots from the beginning of the day, finding some success there finally as well. And this is probably the best position we've seen Skyjump and Momsy off-spawn throughout the entire day. They've now got the entire Wonky Land to themselves. I mean, hopefully, as long as another team don't come flying on through. But this could be their time.
Skyjump and Mumsy, too, they're also a bit notorious for having those unexpected third-party initiation moments. So, to watch another one come to fruition here, always a positive start to the day. Max and Benny trying to wager whether or not they're actually going to be able to take out Rytex, but both receiving some battle scars here along the way. Both teams injured enough that they're going to be forced to kind of come to a little bit of a pause in the action here. But all this noise taking place at Sinister Strip, it's definitely caught attention from other players elsewhere. You never want to get too fixated on the immediate box fight that you're sort of a participant to, because you never know when another team's going to pull up just like this. Tricks and Snaked immediately punishing the Rytex. Getting caught off guard here, just too tunneled on trying to stare down the duo they'd initially been contending with. Always got to remember to watch your back.
That's the danger, isn't it? That is the danger, particularly at Sinister Strip, such a central location on the map, sort of just south of that big orb, the rift in the middle of the map, the dead center. So that's always the danger when you're fighting off spawn there, particularly blocking off angles, ensuring that there's no other teams that could be finding opportunities to take shots on you. Yapko Panzer, a day to, I suppose you could say forget, really. Have to say forget, because it's just not been their day. And it feels like we say the same thing every single game, but it just seems like they haven't been able to find a successful end game, a successful mid game even, you have to say. Just getting to the end game has been a lot of their issue. So interesting to see how they approach things now. Maybe the extra experience they have of playing together for such a long time previously will play a part. But Izzy, Nosif, getting inside of a bit of a fight here. Quick's one of them on the other side of the wall. Nosif looking to try and maybe fake overdrive grenade out. Quick's looking for an angle as well. As it seems like, yeah, another team coming on through. Is that Yapko on the other side of the wall? Quick's trying to get inside of a fight as well. And things are really starting to boil over here at Sunken Shores. So many eyes on this fight. And so much at stake as well.
And the problem right now for Quick Suzuki is that they're losing the driving position here. But Izzy and Nosif finally going to be brought down to an even level. Izzy now as a solo, but with Yapko and Panzer still just lingering about, this is going to be very complicated.
sure a lot of the French fans, all the French fans will be rooting for them in this penultimate game here.
Start to see some of the nerves also taking place, some of these overdrives, making sure you're not bumping into your duo along the way, cutting yourself a bit short here. But Momsy and Skyjump, as they make their approach, the likes of Yapko and Panzer. And with the Yapko and Panzer having played Janitorial Crew to their mid-game fight, it set them into a pretty decent position. It's probably the best that they have looked in today's competition in terms of loadout and how much material they actually have, but the Surge threshold working against them currently. Granted, would almost expect the lobby to drop to 40 rather quickly here, with how aggressive everything has been so far. Rosie and Chuck, though, going to be some of the first that Panzer and Yapko tried to get some damage in on, but now they have to worry about the rest of the lobby also looking in on their position. Yapko going to take a different kind of approach, sort of trying to figure out whether or not a new line of sight might work a bit better here, while Panzer just continues to move forward.
Yeah, you can always use this as well to your advantage. For a team like Reason and Khan just sat next to Panzer and Yapko, they can see that Panzer and Yapko are actually getting very aggressive inside of those boxes. They're trying to spray. As soon as that Storm Surge threshold appears on your screen, you can sort of get a sense of what the teams around you are trying to do. Are they trying to box up? Are they a team that's good on Surge? Or are they a team that are low on Surge? And I think Reason and Khan can sort of identify that. That's why they're sort of retreating here into those fully built metal and brick boxes. They don't want to be the tags that these teams next to them so desperately need, so they're playing their own materials, they're playing their own way, and now they've got to play for a rotate. Difficult rotate for them as well. They do get a little bit split here on this overdrive grenade. We're going to have to get back together sooner rather than later. Reason's just a little bit ahead of Khan right here, so they're going to have to try and get into the same box, which they do without taking damage. So could this be the game here for Reason and Khan? They've set it up so perfectly so far.
One thing's for sure, we know that they are definitely still looking for a height, but first and foremost, they might have to deal with Rickboard and Spotty. They might have even scouted out the fact that there's a team that's starting to get chipped away at from the Surge Ticks. Chicho, Skabi, different successes though. The only problem being, they might not be able to make it towards that body loot as close as it might appear. They just don't want to forfeit what they feel like is better positioning, especially not with still needing to make their way into that next end of zone, but managed to skate by where the bulk of the action was taking place. Lobby now starting to look their way, though. Slight forfeiture of some of their hard material, but they've done a great job at just boxing up.
Yeah, I think they're just about in here as well, so they did have to invest a lot of their materials there. They had to invest a lot of their sort of sight lines as well. A lot of players were looking at them right there, but using that fully built metal to their advantage was really important right there. Truly and Savage, what a game it's going to be for them. What a game it has to be for Truly and Savage. But if there's anyone that can clutch up in the final moments, if there's anyone that can perform when his back's against the wall, when Dowsers have written him off, it is, of course, Mr. Savage. He's done it before. Can he do it again with the new blood of Truly, a player that's just been performing so well individually with whoever he's played with at the beginning of this year? And although this week hasn't really been a week to remember for Truly, I feel like they're starting to come into their own here. The fire is starting to ignite. So for them, this is hopefully where it all starts to get a little bit exciting for them. Panzer with a catch throughout the air as well. There's Art Skill down and out, and that's a huge refresh for them.
And they also needed that surge so desperately, but for Truly and Savage, can they continue to stoke the flames here? Truly was looking rather solid in that last game. Can't help but wonder what might have gone differently had he still had Savage with them, as opposed to the solo circumstance he was left to try and contend with. But front side of zone, getting a little bit more haphazard here. Team starting to make their move, but Reason and Khan, they might be the ones to actually shut down Truly and Savage if they're not careful. Still holding secondary height position. Yapko Panzer now recognizing the fact that trying to elevate a bit here, but they know they can't go for ultimate height just yet. Savage and Truly have done it though, but you have to remember, Khan, Reason, they're not gonna let this one go for free. They are waiting for a prime opportunity for Savage and Truly to be a little bit more preoccupied. So head on a swivel here, Savage. He's tarpeting his way through, he's keeping good control of that front side of zone, but they need to make sure that they're suppressing where the rest of the lobby is at, starting to administer a little bit of damage towards some of the other players in those lower layers. But Momsy catches Flex completely off guard. Great refresh, and it's one that he's going to desperately need. Was running out of material counts, body rolling around inside of his box, still giving him just enough to work with.
Oh no, look at this. Reason and Khan now playing for high. Savage and Truly could hold on to it for a matter of seconds. Khan, though, gets overdrive grenaded way on out. Savage coming up against Reason. Two legends battling it up at the top of the hill right here as Savage reclaims the position as the king of height right now. But so many other teams will be looking at this position right now. So many other teams will be looking at this chaos as a potential green light to go on through. But on the flip side of things, Yapka and Panzo, they are all the way down on low ground. And looking to try and make things happen right there as well. Yapko and Panzer, they're a team that can perform in this environment. Momsy as well, now down to, of course, a solo. Got a nice elimination earlier on, keeping himself going, only 18 builds, but tries to make those builds count by going to front side. Yapko, Panzer still causing mayhem on the mid ground, and this is what this duo can do. They have arisen, they have awoken, and they are reminding us of why they're some of the best players in the region.
But Yapko and Panzer are fully aware of the fact that they've got to contend also with height bearing down on them. Savage and Truly doing a great job at preventing Yapko and Panzer from really building too much steam as they continue to wear through some of their hard materials. But Momsy, his own agent of chaos here, now looking to see if he can take out Akira, but he runs out of time. Forced out of the box here, a good block by Akira, but as a solo himself, but forced to play. Zone pullback, gonna save him for a moment, and finally, Akira Kurama, who's actually still on his last legs, but the fact that they are able to pull this one out as a duo could make a big difference here. As Yapko, Panzer take a moment to pause, take a moment to heal. They got to work their way in, though, from that backside of zone, and it is just very treacherous territory to contend with. No one can seemingly challenge the high ground, but the material refreshes from underneath. Kurama and Akira hoping to see if Game 4 is going to be theirs to take away, but no, Kurama loses track of Spotty, who's just managing to completely spoil their hopes of that Victor Royale.
Truly gets the elim credit there as well. Mr. Savage and Truly still maintaining that high ground. Truly building up as well. There's not too many builds on them right now as Yapko and Panzer are playing on that low ground section. It's Truly and Savage up on high. And say hello to another player coming on up. It's Esbari coming on through as well. The only solo left in this endgame. Can Truly and Savage finally find their form in this penultimate game of the last chance qualifier? Panzer and Yapko are wounded. Esbari down there to cause all sorts of problems for the low ground team as well. They've got to focus on him before setting their sights on high, and they don't have the build stack go. Panzer and Yapko finally find one. Savage finds another. There it is. Mr. Savage and Truly down on the low ground, crumbling down and sending themselves straight to the Major 2 finals. Will you ever in doubt?
Better late than never, and what a perfect time to strike here. Everyone was asking after that Heat's performance from Truly, what does he even do? And we've got our answer, haven't we, Desk?
Yes, we do. Truly learns, he listens from the best, and the best is Mr. Savage. Was there ever any doubt that we would see these guys in the grand finals? Not from us, not from the community, and certainly not from Mr. Savage himself, Levin. He never stops believing.
One word. Script. The script. It's just, you can never doubt the script when it comes to Mr. Savage. Oh, I was on the edge of my seat in that end game. Our producer was in our ear earlier in the game, and he was like, guys, the script, I can see it already. Mr. Savage is going to win the last game, then it's going to leave the room for Tasting the Moustache to have an uncon so that they can potentially win the last game. And I was like, ah, man, this guy's waffling, man. He's just dreaming, like, what's going on about? And they go out and they win the game. And Takara, not without challenge. We've seen the things that other players have struggled with. When when Reason and Faded go up for height against most of the teams in this lobby, most teams roll over. These guys stood tall. Big props to Truly. I feel like he has actually played so well today, and in many instances has ensured that these guys have been in this position to be able to win this game.
Oh, 100%. Definitely been the MVP. I mean, that was a full send from Khan and Reason. They wanted that high ground. They've been trying to consistently fight for it, and Savage Truly did not let that slide. Cleaned up the rest of the match. I mean, we were thinking about it, right? There was only one option. There was only one outcome from this match where both Savage and Truly, alongside Tayson and Merstash, could qualify. We only had 2 matches left. We only had 2 spots left. I know there's fans both rooting for Savage Truly and Tayson Merstash. You don't want to see these 2 duos clashing against each other, and one of them had to qualify in this match. They had to, if we wanted to have that little chance of both of them making it through. But now with one last chance, one last match, one last opportunity, there's only one more duo we can send to the grand finals.
Oh, I know, it's so hard for all of these duos, but just before we say a final congratulations for now to Truly and Savage, just props to this duo, because it could be so easy for them to have gone their separate ways after disappointment. The fact that these 2 have stuck by each other, Savage has seen the potential in Truly. Truly has managed to fight like this under the pressure of knowing he's being watched by Savage's community, who are probably very disappointed in what happened in Heats, and probably put the blame on Truly, because they're not going to blame it on Savage, who they've followed for years. But now we've seen what these guys can do. Let's see if they can repeat that in the grand finals, and let's see who's going to be taking the final spot in that lobby after the break. So this is it. In a few minutes, we'll be heading into the last game of the last chance qualifier for the Major 2 Grand Finals here in Europe. Things are going to be incredibly tense for us on the desk, and they're going to be even tenser for the duos waiting to board the battle bus. So let's talk about some of the favourites going into this final game, guys, because we have to talk about Reason and Khan. They have been on fire with so many near misses tonight, but this is a duo that's going to capitalise on the fact that low ground is becoming more free for them. Levin, what do you think?
Well, high ground is becoming more free,
high ground,
right? Last
I'm
game,
so sorry.
They
you
were
know,
the only
yes.
ones that went up for it. And look, last
True.
time around, I made the comparison to Fredoxy and Marius, and Their story in Heats was very much going for height every single game, and they didn't get the win until the final one. Reason and Khan are going to be looking for a similar story. We know what's going to happen in this final game. They're going to go up for it. It's a guarantee. They are going to go up for it. They will just hope that they can actually hold it this time.
Yeah, look at those placements, though. 20th, 34th, 7th, 17th. I mean, they've been trying really hard to go for it, but there was only one game where they actually held on to it for a decent amount of time. They ended up getting 7th, but you need the win. 7th isn't going to do it.
Yeah, I have no idea why I said low ground just then. I think I was just thinking about the pressure that all of these guys are under, because we have seen these guys time and time again go for that high ground. Interestingly, I can't say the same for Yapko Panzer, because they haven't been making the very end of the end game, shall we say. I think the last game was the first time we've seen them make Zone 12 in the entirety of the Major 2 broadcast to Carter. But when they make it to the end game, they really do look like they are contenders for that victory royale.
Yeah, this match specifically was an incredibly solid performance, but it seemed like every player down below was out of mats at this point. There was one player that got a big refresh. I think it was Akira, and truly instantly took him down, took all those mats for himself, and Yapko Panzer were just kind of left swimming in the waters as they were dropping lower and lower HP, and Savage truly ended up with a pretty quick and easy cleanup, to be fair. So hopefully this second place can motivate Yapko Panzer to do it once more.
Yeah, I think my biggest worry is that, motivation aside, their problem has been the ability to get to end games with any sort of consistency while actually being in a, somewhat stacked, comfortable position. Even in that last game, they had their fair share of struggles with Surge. They were just able to, really fight themselves out of it. And so, again, going into this last game, is it just going to be a repeat of what we have seen the majority of the time for the Steel? I'd certainly hope not, because they're in that last game. They showed us just how electrifying they can be, how big of a threat they can be. It's why we highlighted them at the start of the day. And yeah, again, coming that close, second place. We're going to say, every time someone comes second place, we're going to say it. Second place in that scenario, it just stings quite a little bit.
Well, Akira Karama, they also came very close in those final moments of Game 4. Also sticking out on the low ground, a really hard Heatwave Harbor shore to contend with Takata. But these guys are warming up, and we know that they are capable of a victory royale.
Yeah, big match for them. That's the refresh I was talking about that they picked up. And what's interesting is Savage truly held height the whole time. I mean, Game 1, 5 different teams were height. Game 2, 5 different teams as well. Game 3, 4 different teams. But in this fourth game, it was only Savage truly. They were so dominant, applying that pressure from above, taking out Akira as well. Nobody could successfully overthrow them. So now without them in the lobby, we'll see if Akira Karama can get a better placement.
Well, we are nearly ready to go into our final game. There's one duo in particular we have not had the chance to speak about yet, and that is Merstash and Tayson. We know they're going to have the flats to themselves, guys, unless anyone decides to try and take up residence where Truly and Savage left off. It's going to be interesting as we look at them at the start of this game, but if they are uncontested, if they can have a successful mid-game, Takata, would you predict them to take this victory royale like our producer did earlier today?
Look, I was doubting going into the last match. I was doubting the one game they won off spawn, though. They got second place, and if you want to do better than the one time you got off, the only option is to win the match.
11.
Look, it's going to be a tough one, right? This weekend, we're going to have one of the best finals in EU we've had in a long time. And every single player in this lobby wants to be a part of that party. Only 2 players will get the chance. Will it be Tayson Merstash now having Uncon? Will it be, Reason and Khan finally having height potentially uncontested? I'm going to lean towards Reason and Khan in this case, but I think there's so many different teams, so many different players who will be in a good spot to fight for it.
Well, there are so many big names in this lobby yet to qualify, but what we've learned from the Heat so far is when the victory royales are on the line, anyone can take it. Count no one in this lobby out. Let's head to Game 5 with Taco and Miniminer.
Find myself having a hard time disagreeing with what Levin just said there, though, Mini, because can't help but wonder if Truly had not confirmed that elimination onto Khan when they were initially being challenged for height, would we have been looking at a Reason Khan Victor Royale in Game 4? But now, the last chance to strike is about to play out, and I mean, Game 5, right here, right now, so many players hoping to keep the Major 2 Grand Finals dreams alive, but only one team can really succeed.
Which team will that be? We're about to find out in our very last game of the day, and of a day of real electric gameplay from so many of our players. We've seen height take different forms in different games, different teams on it, different teams fragging out on low ground as well, and some teams that just will not give it up. And for a team like Reason and Khan, that would be high ground. For a team like Mustache and Tayson, that's this drop spot. And unfortunately, it hasn't been the day to remember in terms of off-spawn fighting. They haven't been the better team off-spawn. That's a fact. But what is a fact right now, and another fact for them, is that they've got one game here of uncontested flats to themselves to make something happen here. And it's now or never for them.
But even with it being uncontested, it still kind of shifts their original game plan. Some of the early surge, for example, if you win that off-spawn battle, you're now going to have to look to try and recover from somewhere else, though wouldn't put it past too many of these players to all sort of be trying to throw out the final Hail Mary here, Mini, because you just can't afford to not take the craziest risk imaginable. You know that this is the final lobby that separates between finding that Battle Bus seat for the Major 2 Grand Finals or waiting it out and having to hinge your bets on that last chance qualifier for your opportunity to qualify for the Global Championship. So everyone just trying to do what they can, sort of mark their best foot forward.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great point, because that's where I feel like Khan and Reason might struggle here in this lobby. I know that they've obviously been going for height in every single one of these games, but in the last lobby, it's always a bit chaotic. Everyone's throwing everything at the wall and hoping that something sticks. And it all starts for them here in this early fight. Khan and Reason against Hedra and Lixium. Lixium just below Khan's box right here. Gonna be able to hop inside of the box. Take down Lixium first. Hedra was there to try and clean things up, but returns a big shot onto Reason as well to make him pause and rethink things for a second or two. Hedra deciding to disengage as of right now, though. Lixium's body will be found and the loot as well. Difficulty here, though, for Reason and Khan, of course, is just navigating these off-spawn engagements, ensuring that these fights aren't going against them, because that's sort of been their problem in a lot of the Heats games and some of the earlier games. They were going down a little bit earlier, so making it to that end game, giving themselves the opportunity to go for high is going to be super important for Hedra and Lixium, though. A disastrous start for this game. Hedra now down to a solo, of course, having to go back towards the team that took down his very teammate, and Overhalo and Zivit are not going to let him go without a little bit of a fight. And it looks as though they might actually do just that, because he's just going to disengage.
Probably a better choice there, though, for Hedra. Just understanding that Reason and Khan fully aware of the fact that there's no reason to continue giving hot pursuit towards where Hedra had initially been headed. They know the odds of encountering a third party was just not really worth risking their own stature in the lobby. So Comeback and Seti, though, maybe a bit happy about the fact that Khan and Reason were caught up in a completely different sort of escapade, because we saw in the last game, Khan and Reason actually looked to challenge Comeback and Seti very early on. Their intentions were obvious. They wanted full control of that mythic pistol that we've been seeing Seti and Comeback typically have control over. But for Nefrizi and Vanya, woes at Wonky Land. Even trade for the most part, but for Nefrizi, they'll have to hope he can actually bring this one down. Handful of other teams sort of getting involved with each other here. Skyjump Mumsy trying to see whether or not they can get the finishing touches here. Trying to see if Nefrizi is going to drop anytime soon, but they're just going to be able to hold him at bay. That's the main problem right now for Vanya and Nefrizi, because even if you were hoping for a bailout opportunity, Skyjump and Mumsy probably some of the last to ever provide that.
Yeah, that's definitely right. It's really sad to see Vanya going down so early. Frizzy having it all to do right now, actually nearly. Gets a nice little full box there onto Skyjump. Nefrizi can do it. There's definitely a world in which Nefrizi can win this fight, but he needs to make it happen sooner rather than later, because even if he wins this fight, which is unlikely in itself, they've already set their game back so many pegs, and it's going to be difficult to recover. Of course, step one is going to be trying to cause some problems for Skyjump and Mumsy, which he hasn't really been able to do, apart from the sort of the beginning of this fight, I suppose you could say, when one of them was having to heal up. Nefrizi just doesn't have the shield to actually recoup this health. Only the medkit to actually keep him alive inside of the storm. But of course, as that medkit keeps being popped, the time is ticking. The storm damage is continuing. And Momsy and Skyjump decide that enough is enough. It's time to go on up. And Frizzy holding down this fort very, very strongly indeed. Momsy can't quite find an angle. They don't have the builds here ready to have a proper build battle. That's why they're going for the chop. Skyjump looking for a different angle. Momsy from another side. Skyjump looking from behind and finds the shot to take down the Frizzy and ruin the chances of them making their way into the Major 2 finals. And that is a real upset. I mean, Vanya, what a year he had last year. What a global championships, coming second, of course, winning an FNCS last year as well overall. Now not making it to back-to-back Major finals. That's hard. That's really, really hard. That's really tough.
And unfortunately, one duo's downfall is just going to lead to another duo's upcoming. Everyone that has already found their early exits from this lobby will have to sit and wait and see who's actually going to bring it all the way towards a Game 5 Victory Royale. For Alvin and Brutus, stuck in a bit of a mess here. A couple other duos surrounding them. Bit low on shotgun ammo also. But Strapido and Dumbler don't seem like they're in any sort of rush just yet. They'll take the chance, kind of sit and wait, replenish some of their shields before re-engaging if it comes to that. For Alvin and Brutus, again, teams, they don't really care about their placements that have occurred during the first 4 lobbies. It's exclusively down to whether or not they can actually bring it back with the Game 5 Victory Royale. It would be just the ultimate saving grace on the day for every single one of these teams, but it's just so heartbreaking when you know only one duo can actually have it.
So heartbreaking. I mean, you know, it's tough because you can come out of today a competition like this where you might think, yeah, you know what, we deserve to qual there. We played well enough to qual. We did well enough to get a win, but if you don't, it just doesn't mean anything at all. So for some of our teams that, of course, for most of our teams that won't make their way into the Major 2 finals, it's really just a tough situation to find yourself in. And of course, being able to pick yourself up mentally is going to be really important. But of course, what's going through these players' minds right now is that we can be that team. Why not us? It's been 4 teams prior. Why can't we be that final team? It has to be somebody. So for players like Torkill and Deuce, you just haven't had the day to remember at all. They've just been overrun in a lot of areas, particularly early on in the game, just not being able to get the game going. It's often been the case, I feel like, in these sort of lobbies where the final game winner isn't always a team that's played really well throughout the day and that's been consistent, that's got into the end game. Sometimes it has been the case where someone just comes out of complete nowhere at the bottom end of the leaderboard, then does find the win. So do not count any of these guys out. Looks as though Lixium has been able to be revived, but unfortunately, straight back down and straight back to another reboot potential here for Hedra, but it's an absolute surge farm here for Reason and Khan, who can get their second of the game, and they're second on Lixium.
And this is very likely why they'd even opted to not give chase to Hedra at the starting point. Even with that elimination onto Lixium, they knew eventually Hedra wouldn't have many opportunities aside from heading even further north to try and make that reboot play a possibility here. So Khan and Reason just more than content, get that additional search farm. Now they'll start making their way down. The zone pool, maybe a bit more favorable also for Khan and Reason. But look at what's brewing just above Seti and Comeback. They'll be trying to get their own little taste of vengeance here after what took place in Game 4.
You reckon Reason heard that? You reckon he heard the bush? Because he's just boxed up. Looks as though he might have heard it. Comeback definitely made themselves known right now. We might get a round 2 of the fight that we saw earlier on. I wonder if Seti and Comeback know that this is Khan and Reason, or if they're just disengaging for the sake of it, because we know how that fight went down early on in the last game. And I'm sure if you're a Seti fan and a Comeback fan, you do not want that fight to be going down again. So smart disengage there from their perspective.
Other teams, slightly more calm position. Cypherosi continuing to try and keep tabs on where other players in this lobby might start sort of making their way in. Next edge of zone, Akira and Karama off in the distance. Skos and Clays on the team that's postured a little bit closer towards that next edge of zone. Skvi and Chicho, again, initially a team that had been marked to contest Comeback and Seti during the Heats process. They had opted to go elsewhere, formulated an entirely different type of game plan, but here today, when it's just a win and you're in style format, Chicho and Skvi, we've seen moments where it looks like they might be able to just get the job done, but fallen short, and this is where you really got to try and keep that mental fortitude going strong, and it's not easy, especially when you find yourself in those like top 5 positions, for example, but they look to be set pretty well. 627 above the surge threshold. Nice surge base to kind of keep tabs on where the rest of the lobby is flowing in from. And Yapko and Panzer, they could find themselves in a very, very spot if they're not careful.
Tough for Chicho and Skvi, because you play like that in Heats, well, so it's like they've been so consistent.
Yeah.
They've had 3 top 5s, one of which was a 4th, the other 2 were 5ths. Eliminations to boot. It's like they played really well. It's just not well enough for this format, and
picked the wrong day.
Something that's gonna, yeah, he had literally picked the wrong day. It's like, do that last weekend, and you'd have been absolutely laughing. But different lobby, different circumstances, different sort of pressure that players play under, of course, in this sort of lobby. Mustache and Tayson, though, you know, they managed to make their way off spawn. Now uncontested, no eliminations for them so far. Huge game needed from them. We saw little glimpses of early days of Tayson when he was considered the GOAT. We saw little glimpses of what Tayson and Mustache were like when they won FNCS back in 2023 Major 1. And 2024 Major 1, I think it wasn't even. We saw plenty of it. And we just need to find that little bit of extra in this final game. Just dig deep, find something, find what's within you for Tayson and Mustache to rekindle that success that we've had in Major 1s of past, and forget what happened in the last one, because it's all up to them.
Exactly that is now Oyun Bakso. Get a little bit of damage from Gordete and Zai's there on the way out, but still managing to stay above that surge threshold in a pretty decent spot here. Now looking to see if they can get some return fire in, but not actually able to translate it just yet. Looking back though, for what Khan and Reason have been getting up to. Great drop there by Khan. He's definitely been a bit of a marksman throughout the course of today's action, but again, the main reason why we have seen some of those mid-tier placements from Reason and Khan is because they are one of the few teams here today that they have played every single lobby exclusively looking for the win. And sometimes when you opt for that, you know, go big or go home play style, and you're unable to get the conversion that you would hope for, you know, the placements I don't think do justice for how well Reason and Khan have actually been performing on the day.
Yeah, I completely agree. They've been really good. I think, you know, it's one of those where, again, it's the lobby where people are going to try and take height. They're going to try and overthrow it as many times as possible. So in any other lobby, maybe where teams are trying to play for those consistency points, maybe they would hold on to height a little bit longer. But they've had enough practice now. You know, they've had 4 games of trying to go for it. One of the better height teams in the lobby, of course, out of it. A few of them now, of course, out of it. So it's like, realistically, this is the best chance you've got as a team that wants to play height. But as I mentioned earlier, a lot of other teams, even teams that don't usually play height, will be looking for it. Was that combat there just getting absolutely beamed by one of the Seti, by one of the Mustache and Tayson duo. Seti now looks like he's got to pick up the pieces. Combat down to just 1 HP almost, as Panzer and Yapko looking to try and rekindle some of that success they had in that last game as well. They got really unlucky, actually. There was that sort of player in between them, wasn't it? It was Bari that was just causing them a few problems before Savage and Truly then crumbled on down. But they played it well. Everything about that game was exactly what we were hoping from them throughout the day. They just couldn't put the cherry on the cake. So for now, they've got to try and do that.
Take a moment to stop and look back, though. Get some additional damage in. Mustache and Tayson looking very favorable on this exchange. Possibly even got the audio cues that Skos been claimed by the lobby alongside his duo, Clays. Just carving out a little bit of space for themselves. Able to pick up that secondary refresh body loot whenever they make their way over to it, but right now, possibly even fixated on the fact that they can hear players just overhead navigating through the area that they are currently boxed in. Seti, Combeck, a little bit more smothered here. Just a bit of crouching and lurking along the way, but they are definitely in need of a huge turnaround here. Combeck not even getting the chance to try and recover, just barely managing to keep himself standing. Will manage to make it back to where Seti is at, but they took a lot of damage just moving a couple inches forward. 192 below now. They're gonna have to start getting active, start getting fraggy. And they've got to be exact with their next few movements, Mini, because they cannot afford to eat any more damage. They're already having to contend with some of these surge ticks as is, and Combeck, hardly anything left in that Chug Jug now. It's eliminations or bust right now for this team.
It has to be. It has to be. They've lost all their damage from just Combeck getting beamed. Oh no, Seti there getting found out from below. They were in so many different teams as Domain, and now Combeck has got to try and do a little bit of a clutch of his own. We saw Seti doing it so often during the heat, and of course a little bit today as well. And now it's Combeck's turn to try and make some magic happen. Unfortunately for him, every single possible metric is against him. Health not looking so good, no shield, no surge, having to jump inside of the box, looking to try and find an angle, gets the wall, nice shot there, but not going to be enough to actually take the player out. There's still 218 below the threshold. He can't take damage. He has to do as much as he can, as there's a little bit of a moment to breathe here. And somehow, some way, Taco, Combeck is still in this game.
Just narrowly managing to get off the last bit of his healing resources, but it was such a short-lived victory. Fortunately, we had just been spectating the beginning of the end there for Seti and Combeck, and they will not be able to make it out of this last chance lobby. Mumsy Skyjump, though, trying to take control of their own destiny here. You have to figure that Tace and Mustache, similarly, trying to avoid their own set of woes against the surge threshold. Sitting now just 70 above, a little bit better by healing resources off of slightly healthier Chug Jugs, but again, just still surrounded by so many teams, and it's so hard for them to actually try and build up a layer or two to get out of some of this congestion that they've been encountering inside Ultimate Low, because teams are just refusing to budge. These zone pools also making it just so treacherous because it's just such open area for the most part. Not a whole lot of elevation shifts, but just enough to leave you exposed to any sort of teams on height, and that's going to be Izzy and Nosif currently. We're doing what they can to try and prevent the rest of the lobby from challenging them up above.
You can see that as well when Reason and Khan were just looking right there. Every single rotate they make with the context of looking at height. You can see them just looking up, trying to look at opportunities as Tace and Mustache find an opportunity to jump into the box right there. Don't find the knock and use their experience to then disengage, not taking any damage there as well. So they're still looking pretty healthy here on the mid ground. They're going to need to try and use all of that experience here to qualify on through in this last game. If Izzy and Nosif have anything to say about it, they're just going to be trying to spray down everyone, compress the lobby down here at Chop Shop. There's not too much elevation in this area, so it's going to be a full-on battle of the builds for the mid-ground teams, especially teams on the low, just like Momsy right here, looking to jump straight towards that front side of zone and try and capture a little bit of a position right there. Skavi going down there, as well as Nosif and Izzy making their way towards the front side of zone. Panzer and Yapko battling in these mid-grounds like we've seen them do so well, but can they find that successful win after that second place in that very last game? They'll be playing with so much confidence, and they'll be playing with it very well, but Izzy and Nosif retain that high ground positioning and are able to connect on through.
But this is where it gets a little bit more dicey for the team on height. Khan and Reason, though, they're not going to get the opening that they've been hoping for. In fact, it's going to be Khan as a solo, and with the entire lobby seemingly fixated on his position, burning through so much of his material, has managed to find just a single opportunity to get off a little bit of healing. But Izzy and Nosif just continue to weigh down on where this lobby is actually starting to try and make their way over the water. A little bit of a chop attempt here. Izzy very aware of it, though, going to prevent them from being dropped just yet. But they're going to have to get involved sooner or later as Merstash and Tayson forced in to another awkward position here, and Merstash won't be able to pull it through. Just too many players collapsing against where they were located. That is going to be the end of the run here for the Major 2 finals. Yepko Panzer, though, still trying to keep the dream alive. Players jumping in one after the next. Gordete barely managing to squeeze away from where Panzer and Yepko are at, but this uncontested middle layer, it's actually working out pretty well currently for Panzer and Yepko, but they're going to need just a little bit more.
Yeah, they're in top gear right now. They're free-flowing. They're looking good. They're finding shots. They're clearing out layers. They're clearing out players. And they're finding out so much of this mid-ground layer, being able to find so much of those materials to keep them afloat as well. Frozy and his teammate looking to make the front side of zone. Full box, full piece. Can he find the shot? He can in the end. That's Panzer that goes down there as well. So that's another one of our heavy hitters in this lobby that's down. Of course, that leaves Yapko down as a solo. Can Yapko find some success right here, or is he going to have to play the Chug Jug? Look who's still alive as well. It's Khan. Can he do it all as a solo? He's played so well playing with Reason, but can he turn it into a qualification for the major finals? Looking for shots from behind, connecting with a few onto iFrozy, but he's going to have to settle for a Chug Jug for now.
But he put so much pressure onto where Frozy is at. If he can just get that singular striker shot to really give him a little bit of a window to work his way in. But all of these teams sort of circumventing what a little bit of leftover pressure is, stuck inside of the water, even trying to make their way up. Frozy is going to go down finally to Flex, and now Colder, one of the few duos still left in this lobby. They've managed to actually overcome that little dip in low and height, but the panic is really starting to ensue. You can tell a little bit of nerve starting to factor in. Khan secures it, though. The siphon could be what takes him over the edge here. Is now Khan trying to see whether or not he can capitalize on another elimination, but Izzy and Nosif have finally descended from their perch, swooping in the final moments to secure the victory royale here in Game 5.
Izzy and Nosif, they set themselves up for success early on in that end game. Height was looking pretty free for them, but then it started to tumble on through. So